Okay. Good evening. This
Mr.
is
Long.
the David Douglas School Board meeting, Thursday, December 14th, 2023, 7:12 p.m. And we are welcoming everybody that is here with us tonight and those that might be listening online. We want to begin with our Native American land acknowledgement. Today, we want to begin our meeting and again continue our school year by acknowledging that we gather as David Douglas School District on the traditional land of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes, past and present, who made their homes along the Columbia and Willamette rivers, and honoring with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. We further want to again acknowledge the impact of the forced removal, violence, and attempted erasure of the lives and legacies of Indigenous people, past and present, and to commit to creating an educational environment that honors Indigenous history and contributions and encourages the continual pursuit of better stewardship of the land we inhabit as well. David Douglas School District, our mission is to provide meaningful, equitable, and highly effective instruction so each student grows and thrives socially, emotionally, and academically. Through supportive communities of learners, David Douglas staff will foster the whole child to be a force for positive change in the global society. That is why we are here. And we're going to get started with our student body president report.
Thank you. So as we wrap up our 2023, the year of 2023, Student Council has been faced with lots of challenges with the absence of our advisor. And I think that's something that we've come to a realization is that some people are taking advantage of that in class. You know, we're in a really fast-paced environment with not really much guidance. And one win I say is how our ASB board members have come together to realize that there's problems with like people not coming to their shifts, people not doing what they're supposed to be doing, especially in such a large classroom environment. Like I said before, this is the largest student council group we've seen ever with a total of 90 members. And we've come together as a board to really take on this challenge. And I think after winter break, we're going to be trying to come together to head on this challenge. With that being said, though, I have released an ASB president newsletter that addressed what all three class periods have accomplished, recognizing those wins that we've had so far since the beginning of the year. I told the story of a challenge that our ASB board members faced, how we responded, and what I learned from the experience, which was earlier this year in September. I expressed my view of our council, which is to empower student groups to rise and get what they want, and that we are not an administrative or a judicial body. It is our job to provide resources and be there for our students. We put ourselves out there for our students through dances, events, and assemblies, and we offer as much as we can to uplift them and empower students to get what they want. This is a message that I want to reaffirm throughout inside our student council because it's up in the air with our student body as well as our own student council members, and that's just something I want to make clear. I also want to use this time to advocate for a new action item that I wanted to add to the board meeting agenda for future meetings, and that's going to be a student public comment. On our end, within the student council, we will task one of our 7 groups to urge students to attend our district board meetings and make it known that the opportunity is available for them to speak at these meetings. We will offer ourselves as a resource, and this dedicated group will coach students who have an interest in presenting at board meetings. In addition to that, following up with a suggestion, we will add district board meetings to our 5-star app so students can earn points for attending board meetings. And I want to say I appreciate the board's efforts to make to come to attend our student class periods, council class periods. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. We all thoroughly enjoyed it. And I also want to encourage you to all visit other large student groups around campus, such as Link Crew classes, National Honor Society, Civic Scholars, and Unity Clubs such as BSU, LSU, ISU, and ASU. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? All right. Thank you very much. Can I ask one question? Did you say that you've been without an advisor?
We've had an advisor per class. Kelsey Stiff, she's our main advisor. She's been out on medical leave, and she's been really a big point of contact for everything. She holds people accountable. She is really she does so much for our class, and without that, there's kind of like a loss of authority. Even though we have those substitutes, yes, we've been kind of out without one. For our last assembly, I basically ran that by myself because that's all us Miss Stiff, organizing all that. And so it's been a challenge, and we've just been trying to address it.
Okay. Thank you.
The Scots Angels Assembly? Which assembly did you do?
That was the recent one. Yep, Scott's Angel.
It was awesome. I watched it. It was really well done and, hilarious and fun and touching. So nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. I am sure that her work has been to prepare you to do your work. And so it's good to know that things are still in good hands. And it's probably going way better than you feel like it's going. And so we just want to encourage you to keep stepping up. We appreciate you.
And with that said, I just want to offer any help, any support, email away, text away, call away. Got a few people around this table that could dust off including myself, dust off our teaching certificates. And we'd love to I know you referenced we were visiting and connecting and doing some interactions, and we have some more planned in the near future. But if something comes up where you think, man, it'd be helpful if they came over and navigated with us, we'd be happy to be there and help. So just say the word.
Okay. And so now it's time for our public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? No. No. Okay. All right. So we will move forward. Is there a comment from our DDEA chapter?
Good evening. It's good to see you all again. I just thought I would update you on our one-to-one conversations that we've been having with our members. So as of today, we have visited every site. We still have some revisit dates at the high school because it's massive. And I have not had any full days to get over there. So January we'll finish that up. Last week we had the opportunity to send several of our members to an educator roundtable with all of the East County school districts. It was great to see Hua there and chat with her a little bit. And we talked about disrupted learning and how that is affecting every school district in East County. It's not a David Douglas issue, but we are definitely facing that issue as well. We talked about funding, and we talked about attraction and retention of educators. And so it was great to be able to talk to some of our legislators, have them come and talk with us, and to share across our districts how we're all dealing with a lot of the same things, how we can work together and really sort of pool our strengths and think about what are some things that we maybe need to go down and take a trip to Salem and tell them a little more about how some of the decisions that they're making are affecting us in our school districts and how we can work more collaboratively with them as well. So that's my DDA report for tonight.
Thank you. Is there a report from OSEA?
and thank you for letting me come and speak. I just have a few information to share of things that have happened. So we had a pay equity study done that took about 15 months, and it's really exciting to have that wrapped up and get to hear the information and the results of that. And I'm excited. Oh, sorry, don't like the mic. Do I have to start over? So anyways, we're excited to be able to get that information shared out with classified staff. It was really nice to see that we're pretty much where we should be or above, so that was really great. And then that will also have some really great positive changes to our reclass process. And then also this month our insurance pool takes effect, and once again it's super successful, and so classified staff that have premium costs that come out of their pocket, that'll be fully covered. And so that makes a really big impact for some folks that have covered their families. It's a pretty high out-of-pocket expense, and so it's nice to have that covered for them. And then we have nutrition services staff members that'll be going down to Portland Public Schools next week and help fill the gap for people that had planned vacations. And so they had an extra week added, and so some of our staff will be going down and helping with that. So I think that's great. They're excited because they get to have a few extra days of pay, and it really helps. And they'll get to be able to show off the skills of David Douglas staff. And then our membership is continuing to rise, which is really a super exciting thing for us. We're at the highest point we've been since I've been in David Douglas, 21 years. We're at the highest with that. And we just hope that as folks are seeing the positive impacts that the union has made for classified staff, that we'll have an increased membership. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great to hear how they're supporting with Portland. It's awesome.
We made sure that there's a no recruiting clause.
Yeah, exactly. We want everyone that goes to come back. Glad to hear that. Before we proceed into our invited public comment, I just needed to make an announcement this evening. We did receive notice this morning that board member Kate Sherman will be resigning from the school board. She just has a lot of things going on personally within her family, and will not be able to continue through the rest of this year. So there will be additional information going out as soon as possible in terms of a process of filling that seat for the board, as well as a timeline for how that will work. That will be available on the website and will be shared throughout our community, probably through Parent Square and every other avenue that we have available to us. It will need to be open. Legally, we're required for that to be open at least 30 days. And so then after that time, we will then begin the formal process of looking at candidates to fill that seat. If there are any specific questions concerning that, do encourage you to pull us aside afterwards, and we'd be happy to answer as much as we can at this time. Okay, so moving on into our invited public comment tonight, we begin with Cherry Park Elementary. Matt Soul and Bonnie Morales.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to say good evening to David Douglas School Board, Superintendent Richardson, and cabinet members. My name is Matt Sewell, and I'm a very proud principal at Cherry Park Elementary School. And I'm joined here tonight by our incredible assistant principal, Kathleen Lauer, Bonnie Morales, a parent of a Cherry Park student and David Douglas High School student. And then we also have a letter that we're going to be sharing from another Cherry Park parent tonight. We want to thank you for welcoming us as we share with you how our school collaborated to elevate, and celebrate the experiences and rich history of December traditions of Hanukkah and Kwanzaa within our wider David Douglas community. And so special that we do this on the last night of Hanukkah. So our first part is that our equity team worked to prepare information for our district about these holidays and why they're important to our community. We did a couple of different slide decks to share with our community, And within these slide decks, we shared details about the holidays, resources for educators and learners, and local events that our community can participate in. You can see a few of our slides up here. I'll take you through those. Just a couple examples. I want to really focus on our family input tonight. So you can see a couple slides of information about Kwanzaa and Hanukkah. And then you go in, you can see a couple of slides regarding resources for our educators and learners. Go ahead and keep going. These slide decks will be shared with our broader David Douglas School District, and they'll be coming out. They started in beginning of December. Go ahead and keep going. See some literature examples that we shared and resources for educators and learners. And then the last thing is events that are taking place in our community. All right. So we have, like I said, joined by a couple of community members here tonight. I'm going to pass the mic over to Kathleen Lauer. She's going to read a letter from Stephanie Rebus, who is a parent of 2 Cherry Park Chargers.
She says, every year on the 25th of Kislev, according to the Hebrew calendar, we begin what has come to be our favorite 8 nights of the year. Hanukkah, which began on the evening of December 7th this year, is more than just festive music and spinning tops. It radiates joy and, most importantly, hope. Growing up, I always felt this connection. We'd turn off all the lights and then light the candles on the menorah. And once they'd been lit, I'd sit back and stare at the literal light in the darkness. It always drew me in, watching the flames dance and the unique wax patterns that would gather as the candles melted. I've embraced this even more as I've gotten older and have delighted in watching my 2 sons making these same connections. Witnessing them take pride in this holiday has been so beautiful to see. I love hearing them sing the Hebrew blessings over the candles and watching them take responsibility to light the menorah. Then we all wish Happy Hanukkah while we hug each other after candles have been lit. There are many ways to celebrate this holiday. It's different from family to family. In our family, in addition to the lighting of the menorah, we love to take part in many of the traditional activities that go along with Hanukkah. Following the Maccabees' victory in Jerusalem, a small amount of oil was found in the Holy Temple during the rededication. The miracle we celebrate today is that the oil found in the temple, which was enough for only 1 night when lit, ended up lasting for 8. As a homage to this miracle, we consume foods cooked in oil. My boys have said this is one of their favorite parts of Hanukkah. Makes sense. You can't go wrong with jelly donuts and crispy fried potato pancakes, latkes. We usually have applesauce and sour cream to dip them in. Yum. We also love playing the dreidel game, where we spin the 4-sided top in order to see who comes away with the most gold chocolate coins, gelt. My kids always look forward to sharing this part of Hanukkah with many of their friends. Exchanging small gifts is also a fun way to celebrate one another and the spirit of giving that the holiday invokes. One of my favorite parts of the way we celebrate Hanukkah is sharing it with family, near and far. We don't have any family who lives close by. It's just the 4 of us here in Portland. But we do have family in Florida, Boston, and Texas who hop on a Zoom call to light the menorahs, sing songs, play virtual dreidel, and celebrate together. This year, we all get together on the last night of Hanukkah, the 14th. That's probably why she's not here reading this letter for us. The joy and festive spirit of the holiday is strong year to year. It always feels important to honor and celebrate this part of who we are. For me, I always feel connected to the nostalgia of my childhood and can only hope that I'm helping my kids build similar feelings to carry them through their years. I asked my boys what celebrating Hanukkah means to them. My oldest, 9, said, "It's always making me feel so warm, not just because of the flames on the candles, but I feel warm on the inside with my family." My youngest, 6, said, "I feel joy. Hanukkah always makes me so happy, and I don't want it to end." Hanukkah is one of the most joyous, festive, light, and fun holidays we share together. But the biggest takeaway by far is that while dreidels are fun and latkes are delicious, the most important part of Hanukkah is the feeling of hope and always making sure we connect to the light in the darkness. Stephanie.
And then just passing over to Bonnie Morales, whose son Noah is a freshman here at that high school and is performing in the choir right down the hall. So thanks for being here on the last night of Hanukkah and what your son's.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share our family celebration for Hanukkah, and not as poetically written as Stephanie, but here I am. I guess to start, the most important thing for me when I think about Hanukkah is why it exists and why we celebrate it, and that is because 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, where the Jewish people were, they were forbidden from practicing their religion and their faith, and the temple was consecrated by the Greeks at the time. There were many instances of this over the years, as we know, and in this particular instance, when they did retake the temple eventually, in order to make it holy again, a synagogue has to always have an eternal light. That's the presence of God. And so to make it holy, they needed light. And to light, they used oil, right? So there was enough oil that was already made that should have lasted one night. And it ended up lasting 8 nights, which was enough for them to press more oil and refine it in time to continue that thread without it stopping. And so there's a lot of symbolism that you can pull from that. And, history continues to repeat itself, not just for the Jewish people, but for so many oppressed in our world. And so that's why I think that story continues to be really helpful and an important moment to reflect on that. So in our family, and the other thing that's important historically is when during this time when Jews were not allowed to practice their faith, a lot of it is Torah study, right? It's a lot of just going through the books and learning. It's a learning-based faith. And so what they would do is, if they thought the Greek soldiers were coming, they would hide away their books and pull out tops to spin. And so it looked like they were playing games, and that is why that dreidel is an important part of Hanukkah. And the coins that you see in bags in stores, you would use coins or something to, as a pool of money, to spin. You spin your top and you get a certain amount of the pool, right? That's how the game works. And so the little coins come from that. And also, because actually gifts were not an important part of Hanukkah. Like when I was a kid, we didn't exchange gifts. That's really only become a thing in the last 15, 20, 30 years, really. Before that, if anything, you would give some money. Actually, what it comes from is rabbis allowed for the gift of a small amount of money for students to take to their teachers. And so that's actually where the idea of those little coin bags come from, is that this was a time of year when you would honor your teachers and give them a little bit of coin. And so that carried through to have gifts of a little bit of money for children in more modern times. And then more recently, as we try to make our children feel like they're not missing out from Christmas, that's kind of where I think, and I know in our family at least, where Hanukkah gifts come in. So either way, the oil, all the miracle around the oil lasting for 8 days is commemorated through those oil candles, or a lot of people use wax these days, and then also through frying foods. So in our family, we do the menorah every night. It's important to put it in front of a window, though I would be remiss to not point out that in the current climate, I know a lot of my Jewish friends that are not putting their menorah in the window, which is really quite saddening. We do continue to do that. We do feel comfortable in our Cherry Park community and our larger David Douglas community that we feel like we can display that proudly. Though that is something to know for those of you who have Jewish friends or coworkers or children, that sometimes people do feel uncomfortable these days in sharing their Judaism. But you put it in front of the menorah to share the miracle that happened then, and for us to remember that moving forward. So sort of rambling, but I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to. So thank you.
Thank you for allowing us time to present tonight and share this with you. And always love hearing stories from our families and community. honestly think that's what makes David Douglas so rich. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I agree that I feel like we have such a gift being in this community and learning and hearing and sharing our traditions with one another and honoring them. Hanukkah and Christmas and Advent and Kwanzaa and Chinese New Year and Ramadan and Lent and Easter, all of the things that I think enrich our lives and encourage us to listen to and share with and honor one another. So thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. Mm-hmm. Continuing with our invited public input, we have a presentation on equity at a glance. Sabrina Summer.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Sabrina Summer, and I'm one of the equity specialists for our district.
My name is Gabby Benzagoma, and I am the other equity specialist for our district.
And we're here just to share a little bit briefly about what the work is that we've been doing this year around equity and the ways that we support our schools, and essentially kind of how the equity program is being rolled out. We want to start by naming the fact that it is because of you all that we get to do this work, and we are grateful for that. And it's because of you all that our district is so very committed to equity work and to helping advance equity across our district for the sake of our students, which is really at the core of everything that we are doing, is to ensure that we are providing better opportunities for all of our students to be able to have the access to their education, to be able to see themselves reflected back in their classrooms, their cultures, their languages, and that is really kind of at the heart of everything that we do. But we would like to share just a little bit more with you around that. It is all grounded in the equity plan for our district and our strategic plan as well.
All right, on the next slide, you're going to see a little bit about how we began the year. Our job, everything that we do, is to help elevate student voice and experience in an equitable way. And so at the beginning of this year, we really wanted to take seriously the discipline targets that y'all made for our district. And so we envelop those into our equity goals. Every school has an equity team, and every team has equity goals. And this year, our equity goals, and moving forward, we're focusing on those discipline targets that y'all created. We also really wanted to make sure that we were focusing on restorative practices as well, being a district that is really taking that seriously. We have connected our restorative practice PD and our equity PD, so then we are making sure that we are taking in those actionable things that teachers can do in the moment in their classrooms to make sure that they are doing equitable things. So at the beginning of the year, we went to every single school and did a check-in with every building, their equity chairs, and their admin to see what actionable steps we could create to help towards reaching the discipline targets. And so it looked very different for every school. I know that today we are going to be sharing, but you're also going to hear from other schools sharing some of the things that they have been doing to find some actionable steps towards those discipline targets.
And I just want to add that as part of that work, we go to all the equity meetings with the schools that we each work with and get to participate in those conversations with them as well around the specific actionable steps that they're taking towards the goals. And so it's just been really interesting to get to be part of those conversations and see the learning that is happening in our different schools. Just to share a little bit more about the work that we are doing and the support that we offer in our schools, we We get to go into every building, which is super cool. This is my second year as a TOSA, and it's been really fun to be connected across the district to get to know our district-wide culture, and there is kind of a culture across the district, even though every building is also very unique. And it's just been very delightful to see the work that is happening across our district. That being said, we do a lot of challenging work around teaching educators about equity, and that's a big part of our program is the PD that goes out across the district and the ways that we support that work. We help create those PDs and then show up in schools and advise and help in that. Teaching educators, is a little bit challenging sometimes, and so I think that is a really big part of our work. Is the goal is always the student outcomes, and yet, for students to succeed, we need to keep growing and learning and reflecting and doing it all over again because the world is changing and our students are changing and their needs are changing. So that is all a part of the conversations that we get to have with our staff across schools.
Some of the things that we have been supporting schools in within those equitable steps or within helping them along their own equitable journey, we wanted to highlight at 2 schools I've been helping with either student affinity groups or student equity groups. So in that picture in the lower right-hand corner, you can see that there is a student equity group at Gilbert Park. They actually have 2, one that meets during Sun School and one that meets during 5th grade lunch, both for 5th and 4th graders. I've visited both, and they're really wonderful spaces to be in. And in the new year, I am going to be supporting student affinity groups, Latinx Student Union and a Black Student Union at West Powellhurst. And those are spaces where students can come together in affinity and be themselves and talk about things and really just come together in community. So those are actionable steps towards those goals that a couple of schools have chosen. Another thing you also have a copy of is our professional development overview. Every few months we have equity PD that we do around the district, or equity teams do around the district, and we support that. And at the end, they always do an exit ticket, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing stuff with the feedback that we're getting. We're not just taking feedback for feedback. We want to have actionable things. And so after our exit tickets, we do some looking into those and taking the data and put that back out to folks. So for example, one question on the exit ticket for every PD is, what is something that you need to be able to continue the work around the topic that you're doing? And that those answers are published back out with resources that directly connect people to the resources that they said that they needed to continue the work that they were doing.
Yeah, so as Gabby was sharing, you could hear just a little bit more of how that we're kind of trying to study the impact that it is having and then adjusting and changing things based on what we're hearing from our staff around that. There's a lot of other ways that we have provided support as equity specialists. We do a lot of PD. That's a big part of our job. We do a lot of DEI training across the district, and we're really lucky this year. I mean, we've been able to do trainings with our cabinet members, which is an honor to get to do, and we have trainings scheduled in the new year with nutrition staff across our district, also with secretaries from our buildings, so basically the goal is really that we want this to be happening everywhere. Like, everyone in our school should know what we mean when we talk about equity and what impact we're looking for there, always going back to student impact.
Another big portion of our job is that we attend equity meetings for the buildings that we are assigned to. Every school has a different frequency of meetings, but we attend at least one of their meetings a month. And it really looks different depending on which school you go to. The equity teams are all working towards similar goals, but depending on their communities, it looks a little bit different the way that they do it. So we might be helping them with going over their behavior data or supporting with professional development, offering feedback, brainstorming, making sure that the decisions that we're making or the conversations that we're having, we're always coming back to our equity lens and always centering that. We celebrate the wins and accomplishments because there are so many, and we also support with problem solving with anything that might be coming up around equity in the schools.
Yeah, we're recognizing it's slow work, but it's very important. We want to share a little bit. We're really excited about this. These student equity resources are coming from some of the feedback we've gotten from teachers who have been part of PD and say, this is really great stuff that we're learning. How do we have these conversations with our students in classrooms? And so Gabby and I have worked together to provide some resources. We're not calling them lessons per se because they're not like, lesson plans, but they are a lot of resources, activities, and opportunities for teachers to take back their learning around various things like microaggressions or interrupting racist comments and things like that, and taking that back into the classroom and having those conversations with their students. It's pretty cool. We found that Teaching for Justice has social justice standards, so we use their standards for pre-K all the way to 12th grade, and then identified different resources aligned with the different grades and put them together and are sharing them out with equity chairs and buildings now so that hopefully teachers, as they become more comfortable, are able to engage and know how to engage in these conversations. Sometimes they come up unexpectedly and people don't even know what to do in that moment. So this is an opportunity for all of us to keep pushing that learning forward.
And then on the next slide, we're going over just some of the highlights from this year, some of the things that we have been doing that, as we said, are always our goal is to either support educators or support teachers to make sure that we are always going back to that equitable view, because we know that when we support our teachers, they then can support our students. I have been doing both of us have been doing a lot of support with curriculum adoptions, the ELD adoption, and our upcoming science adoption. We've been a part of those to really make sure that the decisions that we're making are going to be for all students and with everyone in mind. And so I've been in meetings and being able to see what's going on and being a part of those communities has been really wonderful to always remember that we're coming back to that piece. Another handout that you have is our monthly essential newsletter. That is one of my favorite parts that I get to be a part of. In going around and visiting all of our schools, I get to see a lot of really wonderful things. And so Sabrina and I come together and go over the things that we saw and have the wonderful opportunity of being able to highlight those things. And so you have our December essential that has some really wonderful highlights, resources, and things that educators have asked for that I put in there that can help with either their own learning or can help with any learning that they need for their students.
And we also help coordinate the different heritage months. The slides that were presented today by Terry Park, that work we've helped coordinate that with each school, taking different months to help with our celebrations, which is really fun. We've also engaged a lot of staff of color events this year, which has been really cool. We get to participate in that and help lead that work. We started with a really fun just outing event where we just hung out together. And then this last PD, we had the opportunity to have a BIPOC-specific professional development time, and we're acknowledging that for folks of color and other marginalized folks, sometimes being in the dominant spaces for that learning can be a little bit challenging, a little bit taxing. And so it was really great to just create a space where folks could come together and share in a space that was just a little bit different and a little bit safer. And it was just a really wonderful and celebratory and enjoyable time that we got to have together.
And then we also have monthly equity chair and restorative practice champion meetings, and that's a picture of our most recent meeting. We had many people in that boardroom, or the room in the training room at the DO, really working on those meetings. We come together to work on the equity PD that is going to be going out in the next days, but then also come together and learn together as equity leaders. What are the things that we need to do within our spaces, so then we're upholding the equity lens and making sure that we're learning in a way that is going to be beneficial for our students.
Okay, I think that that's all we've got for you. We're wondering if you have any questions for us.
All right, a comment and a question. I heard you when you said that these trainings can be really difficult. I know that I can have some really hardwired knee-jerk reactions to these difficult conversations, but the more I have them, the easier they get, and so I do appreciate that. And also, I guess the question is, I would love to take part in one of your equity trainings in the future. If there's ever an open seat in one of the trainings, that would be awesome. And thank you for your work.
There's always an open seat. We would love to have you.
All right. Thank you.
We'll send an invitation.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I would just like to piggyback on that. I attended the White Dominant PD, the White Dominant Culture PD at Mill Park, and it was lovely. It was really well done. I mean, I don't know if lovely is the word. It was a good learning opportunity. I really appreciated all the work that went into it, and took quite a bit away from the learning myself. So, Aaron, you should go to them. They're very good. Yeah, you can just go to one of your liaison schools. That's what you can.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Ventura or Floyd Light.
But I also appreciated that there was a safe space for staff of color during that space, because you could definitely see how that could be needed and necessary. So thank you for both, thinking that whole process through.
Just a lot of appreciation for the work, and thank you also for asking the educators what they need, in order to do this. I think, and being able to try as much as possible to provide the resources, be responsive and nimble and flexible and Douglas oriented. It's really great. So thanks for the work.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you so much for the work that you do. I mean, I guess on just even the presentations that we get monthly for, the cultural months or celebrations, really brings a lot to every board meeting. Look forward to them. So appreciate even the logistical work, which is not always fun, part of the work, but it's necessary. So appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. I have two quick questions. One, it sounded like what I was hearing, that a lot of the work is encompassing of all things connected to race and racism and bias and microaggressions and all of those things. Does this also encompass physical disabilities and I'm assuming gender and all of those things as well? I didn't hear those mentioned specifically, but those are my assumptions. But I just wanted to make sure that is the case.
I think that when we think about equity, for many folks, the first thing that they think of is race or maybe gender. And it's really important for us to make sure that we are always encompassing everyone who has been marginalized. And when we're in our work, we oftentimes have to, if it's not your lived experience, you have to be reminded of the pieces that you might not experience. And I think that even this year, myself, I have been called in and reminded to uplift the voices of folks who don't share the identity that I do. And so within our work, we always do our best to uplift everyone's voice, or the voices of those who are at the margins. And we are actively working to do our best. And so I think that within our PDs that we have one specifically that's working on asset-based language and really making sure that we are focusing on the words that we use with communities. And a lot of that has lived in our special education and the words that we use when we talk about students with disabilities and the way that we talk about students who are with disabilities. And so I'd say that that is one of the PDs that we have. We still have a way to go. Equity is a space where people are always learning, and we will get things wrong. We like to often use a saying, possibly wrong, definitely incomplete. And so all of the equity PD that we put out, it is possibly wrong and definitely incomplete, but we will always continue to put out information and to continue, because this is a really important, equity is not necessarily a choice that people can decide for some folks. It's the way that we live. And so as we are living and as we are continuing to uplift folks' voice, we want to make sure that we are uplifting everyone's voices.
Thank you. My other question was around parents. Is there, I don't know whether there's already been work done with including parents, and if not, are there plans to have materials and trainings that might be open to parents as well?
So I know that last year when we were doing the town halls, we did get a little bit more parent input. This year we have not done very much by way of families, but I do think that that is an excellent question and certainly something that should be on the table for us as well. Right now it has been like the PD for staff and getting, you know, folks on board. But I think that there's plenty of room for us to begin that process anew and hopefully engage more families in this conversation as well.
Another entry point that we've taken on is inviting families to be a part of our equity teams. And in some of our buildings, we do have our parents who are showing up to be on those teams. So we plan to continue that work. We even have students on some of those equity teams.
Additionally, I've seen that some of the school equity teams have been sending out resources to parents who have been asking for it, and it's been really exciting to see that there actually are parents that are asking for resources because their kids are talking about it at school, and they want resources to be able to talk about it at home as well.
I just want to share a quick thing, but like I was at Floyd Light the other day and there was just this amazing restorative conversation that happened between two families. It was sets of parents plus students, and there had been a conflict, and they were all Spanish speaking, but it was just a beautiful thing that happened. And you know, we are seeing, I think, some of the fruit of all of this work that is happening for our staff and our teachers, as well as in the broader community as that is happening as well.
That's great. Thank you. You all make us proud to be part of this district. Thank you.
I can't refuse. I'm sorry. I just wanted to, please keep walking. I just can't. I know I try. We're going to stay on schedule, but I have to publicly thank both of them as well. And I know she's going to be very upset with me, but I'd like to fold in and also extend a gratitude or thanks to Tay for being part of this team and leadership in the team. And ultimately, you know where Tay's office is. It happens to be real close to mine. And these two individuals going in and out every day, making plans, excited, and just moving our district forward. So it's fun to watch, be part of, follow, and lead. So thank you, all of you.
All right. Elevate Oregon. A presentation tonight as well. Donnell Morgan, Sarah Doherty, and Lamar Winston.
Press the button. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Chair Barber, Superintendent Richardson, Tay Spears, Ide, it's a pleasure. It truly is a pleasure for us to be here. My name is Donnell Morgan. Sarah Doherty, my program director, Lamar Winston Jr., my direct service mentor at Ron Russell. We're ecstatic. It's with great gratitude that we're able to come into the David Douglas District to provide services to your students. I've been working with Elevate Oregon since 2016, and we've been providing services in Park Rose since I arrived. And a dream of mine was always to try to get to David Douglas. We have a lot of kids that transfer back and forth from Park Rose to David Douglas. So for us, this is a natural, hopeful site for us to be at. And behind the scenes, Tay did a lot of work for me and for us, and I'm just thankful for this opportunity. So we can click the next slide. The staff that we have working here in David Douglas, we have three. We have Jessica Ruiz Rodriguez. She's at Ron Russell. Of course, Lamar Winston Jr., he's also at Ron Russell. And shortly after we entered Ron Russell, it was we found out there was a need at Ventura Park, and we was able to get a mentor in at Ventura Park, Nia Bradley, and she's working with students 3rd through 5th grade. Next slide. Program director, Sarah Doherty, she oversees all the programs here at Elevate Oregon. And Tiffany Robinson, she is the manager here at in David Douglas for the 2 school sites that we are currently in. Next slide. Elevate Oregon. So our objectives, we really are trying to increase attendance, get kids to attend more, and bring those discipline and referrals down. And hopefully with the kids being in school, in the classroom, those grades will grow up. We really are trying to prepare your middle school kids for high school, preparing them on how to study, how to advocate for themselves. At the same time, bringing kids back to the classroom in order to have productive conversations with their teachers. So it's kind of a lesson on both ends to get them to understand, not necessarily get them, but to bring a working relationship between kids of color and teachers that are not of color. We really are trying to have a positive day, right? The way they interact in school, wanting them to come to school, Lamar being that positive adult, Jessica being that positive adult, and Nia, we know kids are more likely to attend. They have a reason to come. They want to see their mentor, and we know that through that relationship, kids are more likely to attend, and we're able to keep close eyes on those kids. And also, I really think one of the biggest things that really get missed when it comes to nonprofit work along with the kids is the bridge from the parents, the families, to the school district. A lot of times you get parents, sometimes they get down on school districts because sometimes they feel their kids don't get a fair shake or they're being sent home a lot. Where Lamar comes in, where our mentors come in, we're able to speak with the parents, be that bridge. We're able to set the meetings up. We're able to say the same thing probably a teacher would say to a student, but we're able to say it differently, but also have the parents sit there too, so their voices are heard as well. A number of parents aren't able to get to meetings because of work schedules, things of that nature. We're able to be that advocate for the kid, the family, and it's a holistic approach. We understand the district have protocols, and we have to work with those protocols to ensure the kids are getting what they need. Lamar's going to take that information, relay it to the parents. If there's another meeting that needs to take place, Lamar initiates that. So really the goal, again, is to align with David Douglas's everything, whatever it takes for us to get integrated with your curriculum, behavior, grades, discipline. We know this works best when we know exactly what David Douglas needs are, and we're able to work with your teachers, your VPs, your principals to ensure that David Douglas kids are moving from 6th grade to 7th grade, 7th to 8th, and so on and so forth, and they're getting what they're supposed to get that you all wrote up, and we're going to ensure that that happens. Next slide, please. What is Elevate Oregon? Some people say, oh, it's a mentoring organization. Yes, it's that and more. We build relationships. We're teaching kids self-reliance and getting them to be a part and take their own progress and success personal. I think that's the biggest thing. So we know through long-term relationships, starting with this 6th grade group and that 3rd grade group, we know, and we do have the sauce that when these kids are entering high school and those 3rd graders are entering middle school, they will be prepared to speak in front of a group like this, speak in front of a camera, advocate for themselves, be able to get their needs met in the way that they're using their voices in a productive manner. So through long-term relationships, culturally responsive instruction, mentoring, support, holistic, including the parents, the district, the teachers, we know that this kid is going to leave with some skills to be able to, when they leave your district, to obtain, to achieve, and also be positive citizens in their community. I'm proud to say that the kids that have graduated maybe 2-3 years ago from Elevate Oregon and Park Rose currently work for Elevate Oregon. So that's how I know it works, and we will continue to do that here in David Douglas as well. So currently we started in 3rd grade and 6th grade, a slow build, 1 classroom, elective class at Ron Russell, 1 mentor, 3rd through 5th grade at Ventura Park. The goal is to take those 6th graders all the way through 8th grade, follow them through 9th grade, and until they graduate. So this year is very important. This 6th grade group represents the data that you all love, and we're going to make sure we record that data and follow these 6th graders all the way until they graduate. Next slide, please. Outcomes and measured through synergy. That's a very important piece for us when we're doing our one-on-ones, when we're working with our students. The collaboration with you all to have us being able to look at their grades, look at their attendance, look at their discipline things, so we're able to have access of our caseload on synergy. So the goal is at elementary school is to take 90% of our kids to ensure that they are in school 90% of the time. 90% of our kids 85% of our students in middle school to ensure that they're in school 90% of the time. You may say, okay, why, Donnell, is it 85 and 90? Well, a kid in elementary most likely is going to get dropped off by mom and dad. They're in school. Unless they're sick, there's some things going on. Usually an elementary kid may have to stay home because of some parent things. We notice in middle school, that's when they're able to start cutting class. They're getting bused. They find ways to slip through the cracks. So that's where Lamar comes in, being able to see his kids every day in that elective class. I've worked for several nonprofits where it's more of a push-in, where it's more of they sit in this room and wait for things to happen. We're more proactive. So Lamar has this classroom. They have math, English, science, social study. Then they have this elective class called Elevate Oregon. He sees kids every single day. He's able to look at their grades. He can chart how each individual kid needs to be worked with. Not every kid is going to have an educational discrepancy. Some are going to have social skills, emotional skills, things going on at home. Lamar works to figure out what each kid needs along with his partner at the school, Jessica. So what we're working with, he's working with the VP. He's working with the counselors. We're looking at this kid's history from 3rd, 4th, and 5th here in middle school. So we start to work with these kids and work on the things that they need to work with. And it takes time. Like, this is not an overnight type of thing. He's building relationships. We've been here since September. He's built some really strong relationships already. So we see it working. We see kids are really responding to him when he walks in that building. So we know it's going to work. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it over to my program director, Sarah Doherty, and she'll talk about the model, how it works, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, good evening, everyone. So I'll give a little bit more in depth of kind of the day-to-day and what it looks like, because you're probably all like, I wonder what does it look like exactly? So every day we'll have that classroom with our kids, like Donnell mentioned, where kids are able to come in, and our curriculum is based around our life skills. So we have 13 character qualities, we call them, and they are example like leadership, responsibility, positive work ethic, and we build our curriculum around those topics. We push that into the students, and because of that, kids are able to get a 0.5 curriculum credit being in our program, so it kind of enhances their grades there. Another way that our program works is our one-on-one mentoring. So like Jonelle mentioned, Lamar's in the classroom or in the school every single day during lunch, after school, or even times in the classroom. He'll get time to sit one-on-one with a student, build goals for them to reach, and ensure that those goals are being met and supporting that student and what they need. We're also preparing them for high school. So a lot of the discussions and curriculum is, what is high school? I know a lot of the times we bring in high school students to speak to middle schoolers of what they learned, what they wish they would have learned, what they wish they could have took in. So a lot of that is preparing our middle schoolers for high school, as well as in high school, we're preparing our high schoolers for college and what's next and what are your choices after that. And then that leads into, we also do college and career readiness. So we are big on taking, not just bringing our support into the building, but also exposing kids out to the community. So we have a lot of community partners that like to give back to students, as well as we'd like to take kids out. So we have a strong partnership with Oregon State, where we actually at Park Rose, we run a summer camp with them, and middle schoolers are able to live on a college campus by themselves and get to experience college in middle school. So I wish I got that to prepare me, but we were able to take 7th graders going into 8th grade and get them to see what it's like to have a college class, what it's like to live in a dorm, what it's like to go to the cafeteria. So we're kind of getting that aspect, that conversation of college already started in their mind, even starting at the middle school. And then we also bring and take them out to different careers. So seeing what are different opportunities at different levels, hearing from different professionals about how they got to where they got. So I always say it takes a village. So yes, we do a lot of the day-to-day inside the school, but it takes all of us to really make an impact on the youth. And so we utilize that, and we have a lot of strong partnerships in the community that we are able to expose our kids to as well. And then the peer mentoring. So we also are big on what we pour into you. Now it's time to go pour back into kids and maybe youth, maybe younger than you. So a lot of the times we'll have 5th graders maybe go back to elementary school and give back to elementary kids. And maybe during their summer program, we will have them start to support, and the curriculum they learned in their class, now it's your turn to kind of instill that on elementary level too. So we tried to build it like a full, like Donnell said, holistic within ourselves. So that's a little bit of the day-to-day, and I believe I'm the next slide. I think that, yeah. And so, like I had mentioned, Elevate Oregon is, you're able to get a curriculum credit for being in our class at high school and middle school level. In 3rd through 5th grade, although we cannot have a classroom, we still push into classes. So that's where a lot of our relationships with teachers, with principals come in handy and are important. So our model is we build relationships, we change lives, but we don't just build relationships with our youth, we do with with principals, with teachers. It's important for us to get to know each teacher, get to know each principal, their needs, the wants that they need at their school. So a lot of the times at elementary, that's what they're doing. They're pushing into supporting the kids with their specials during recess, and specifically during after-school programming. So we'll partner a lot with the SUN program, and most of the time SUN program will give us a special moment with our kids. And I just worked with Ventura Park, so we just got a special area for our kids during SUN school, so we're able to work with our kids there, and we support the other days. So if we have our kids on Thursday, all the other days of SUN, we're helping them. So we're helping them with basketball, we're helping them with any other support that they need. They already advocated, like, hey, do you have any guest speakers? I got you. So we're able to reach out and also extend our support to them there. So that's a little bit of what the program looks like day to day. Promise you I could probably talk all night. I can say, oh, we're behind time. I won't do that to you guys. But that's a little bit of a good summary of what the program looks like.
Next slide, and we're going to pass it to Lamar. His beautiful picture up there with that young, there we go. And he's going to talk more about how we do the work. How does this happen in that classroom, in that setting?
Hello. Well, fostering relationships and being a bridge is not necessarily an easy thing. It comes with multiple different facets that aren't necessarily captured in small frame. I get the opportunity, and I'm thankful to be able to not only hear the troubles of a teacher, but also hear what's going on with a child as well. And being able to be the middle, be that bridge, and wherever that bridge goes is dependent on, our community that we are in as teacher mentors. Ms. Spears had the opportunity to come in and see our class and the curriculum that we build. I mean, a typical day for me looks like, well, of course, checking my emails, but and sending them in the morning. But I'm going in. I'm recording the data. I'm going into the classes that kids feel like they're having trouble in. I'm talking to those teachers after the fact, during their free time, not only getting to know them better, but also giving them a chance to get to know the student better. Because a lot of times that's what's missing, is the disconnect of, hey, this is what's actually going on. This is why he wasn't able to read that segment. I'm going to sit with him. We're going to work through that together. And it takes time. Restorative work is not easy work. And in order to do that, you have to be patient with each other. So, success is not minute made. I tell the kids that all the time, so that they can have an understanding that just one small change of progress is actually a large step. One small decision to do that assignment when you went home, or to, be honest when we're building our goal-oriented success plans, it actually goes a long, long way in the long run, because it's a marathon and not a sprint. So, I know we're over time, so I don't want to go too much. But for me, my days look like making sure that I'm the glue. And as long as that is a continuous effect, then I begin to see the community stick together.
Thank you, guys. So why Elevate? We support your BIPOC students and the newcomer students that into your district. I think that's very important, that they have someone they can go to, especially being new. That positive adult is a vital part of their day. Family outreach, being the bridge from what you're saying here in your various schools, making sure that we're saying the exact same thing that you're saying, but parents are understanding. We're not here to get your child out of trouble. We're here to advocate, but we're also here to work together to restoratively get that young man or woman back into class. Clean slate. Let's continue to build relationships and make sure these kids are on successful paths in life. College and career support, of course, and really school district integration and true partnership. We don't just want to just parachute into your district and say, here, we have all the answers. No, we don't. In fact, we don't know. We know what you tell us. We know what information you share with us. And once that information is shared with us, it deploys us to know what we can do to help. Where are the blind spots? Where are the spots where it's overtaxing your staff? We are not just here to work with Elevate Oregon cohorts. We're here to be another person in your building, another staff in your building, in the hallways, controlling traffic. We know when a kid see their mentor in the building, they're less likely to miss class. So if we have 17 kids in our cohort, that means there's 34 kids that know this guy. So for every kid that's in our class, they all have 17 friends. So we're impacting not just a cohort of kids, we're impacting your building. And of course, enhanced student outcomes. The bottom line is we want to make sure not only kids are succeeding grade-wise, because we know some kids can just get a grade, but we want to make sure that they're getting the grades. The district is being in. I like to say we're makeup. We're here to make you look good. It's the fact. It's a fact. So when you're seeing Donnell Morgan on news clips, you're seeing Donnell Morgan with the Blazers, you're going to have David Douglas students with us. When you see Donnell Morgan or Elevate Oregon blasted on certain things, David Douglas is going to be there as well. So the notoriety of your district is very, very important to me. The east side from David Douglas to Park Rose is very, very important to me because I live in this neighborhood. So not only is it just working with kids, this is a real push to ensure that your district looks like it's supposed to and you're properly represented. Next slide. Some data. So if you look at 2020, we started in the pandemic. We did it virtual, but we got in our cars. We drove to kids' homes, and we stood outside the gate so they can see their mentor. I made them do that. She was a mentor at the time. So if you look at attendance in 2020, it was 80% for Elevate, 66% for a regular Park Road student that wasn't in Elevate, Oregon. It's gone up from 2021, 84%, 86%, and 83%. If you look at it, it's starting to close a little bit, right? It's getting a little bit more even. That's because of the impact in the school. That's Elevate. Not saying we're doing all the work, but our kids start to hold other kids accountable. The culture. Next slide, please. All three of these guys, or four of these young men play on my basketball team. I am also the head boys basketball coach. All four of these young men have sat with me and spoke at a governor's convention. They've spoke with senators, councilmen, you name it. They've sat and talked about their program. They take ownership in their program. We work with Metro. We have a student-led. We also divvy out grants to smaller nonprofits, and it's student-led. They're part of distributing the money to smaller nonprofits, and all four of those young men have served on that committee as well. So I'm just happy to be here. You guys have no idea. You have no idea. I wrote this down. I manifested it, and thank you, Tay. I thank you so much. So everybody around this table, thank you. You will not be disappointed. Next slide. That's it. Absolutely. A quick story. Yes, thank you. A quick story. We need stories.
A quick story, because I'm the ground troop per se. So actually today, I'll give you just, this one is very fast, but I walk into my office, and one of the kids, he was sitting in class and he saw me. He runs up to the door. He's knocking really hard, and I'm trying to figure out, like, who is this? You know, if it was a staff, they would have had a key, you know. I open the door, and a young man, he says, "Mr. Winston, hey, I turned this F into a B, and I really wanted you to know that, because I know that we're going to go on trips when we get back from break, and I just really wanted you to know that I'm taking our action plan seriously." And, you know, that warmed my heart. Another young man who's not the type to come and tell you, he's a show you, a doer. Actually, when Sarah came to our class the first time, she had a personal one-on-one with this young man. He was a very outspoken young man. He really wants to be seen. And now, as we've transitioned in just 3 short weeks, that young man has not only changed his articulation of himself to the rest of the classes, but he's also encouraging his other classmates to do better, raising his hand every time he wants to speak. Although he was one of those guys that, I'm gonna just say it, you know, the 3 weeks, we're talking about 3 weeks of just conversation, 3 weeks of just, you know, checking himself and allowing him to, you know, own his own space and be his own person. And I mean, it's very powerful when I get to see them affecting each other. But I mean, when the other young man went up to my door today, I just sat there in awe, like, what, how can I thank you? You know what I mean? Because he's taking it personal, you know? So just those short stories. Thank you.
So in closing, just want to open it up for questions, and we'll conclude our presentation this evening.
Thank you. Are there questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for your presentation. This is super exciting. And I guess my question is about capacity. So you're at one middle school and one elementary school, and we have lots. So is there capacity for growth?
Am I at liberty to speak on that? Okay. I got to make sure the boss says it's good. So we have definitely talked about that. Currently, David Douglas pays nothing for this. And we talked about this back in, I don't know, a few months ago. We're able to leverage a partnership with ODHS that put in $600,000 for this. So the answer is yes. So we're currently talking as we speak about your needs. You know, we were looking at maybe possibly another 2 FTEs to go into 2 other schools. So we need guidance from you all on where that need is at. So the answer to that is yes, the capacity is there. We have the funds, and I want to be here. So we will definitely get those funds generated and raised. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I really love this work, and Elevate Oregon sounds like it's a really new organization. It's my first time actually hearing about it, and my question would be, you answered a lot of my questions about the funding piece. I want to learn more about the training support that you have for your staff outside of the school body. Like, how do you, what is the training that you provide and support for your staff to make sure they're ready to provide the support to our students in the district?
That's a lot of my job. So as the director, I'm constantly on the look of ongoing training. We have coaching for our managers, so they have one-on-one individual professional coaching to help them lead their team. And we also have program meetings every single month where we pick a different topic, and then we kind of build in each other. We build off each other's mind. And then I also do have, I work with a lot of professionals, bringing in DEI work, restorative justice training coming up, or restorative practices coming up. So I always hear the need of what we need from the district. A lot of it has come from Park Rose, and I get a lot of feedback from the superintendent, from the principals on like, hey, here's some areas that we're struggling, and I go out and find the answer for our team to come well equipped. So a lot of that I've been working with Tay about, like, hey, what's this? What are you guys doing? And I'm able to go out, find it, and bring it in for our team to get that professional training. But we do have a lot of onboarding we do ourselves too.
And just to piggyback off that, again, as we continue to grow this partnership, we start to identify the needs of what David Douglas needs, right? We're attending equity meetings. We're attending the 6th grade levels meetings. So it gives us an idea of, okay, where we need to go at our training. But at the same time, we would also like to be a part of any training David Douglas offers during in-service. We need to be at those meetings because we're working with kids in a classroom. So we need to ensure that we're following protocol and things of that nature, but also doing what we do best as well. But being a part of your trainings, that's very important.
And just follow up, just to share, if you could share one thing that's the most challenging part of doing this work right now in our district, what is it, and what are some things that are going really well right now?
Go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead.
I would say one thing I really enjoy is the thoroughness of everything. You guys are very thorough on, hey, this is what we need. Hey, this is our protocol. This is where we need help. This is where we're at. Like, I feel like the communication has been amazing, of like, this is what's going on with our kids. This is the area of need, and this is where we're at. It's very helpful for me. I feel like my goals for the organization are very clear right now, of like, okay, I know where we need to go, at least in the schools, the 2 schools we're in. Of course, I got to learn if we expand out, but I feel like I'm enjoying the communication. I love seeing emails from the community partner, like the community partners, like that's huge. Like, in other districts, we have to kind of fight for that, like, hey, we're a community partner, and here's just like, come on, you're a community partner, and we're doing this together, and here's how that. I absolutely love it, because it, once again, like I keep saying, it takes all of us, and I really appreciate that. I don't know if I have any negative, but that's one thing I really appreciate, is like the over communication, the hey, this is what we need, hey, this time, hey, here, and I'm like, I'm there, we're there, we got it. So
I hope that I'm answering this question correctly. But from what I've been able to see at the ground level, there has been, and I think that in all of education, that kids have, unfortunately taken a huge step back as far as development goes. And unfortunately, teachers aren't able to slow their progression down as much as we want to kids that might be testing at a second grade level and he's in sixth grade in math, or he can't read, he's reading at a first grade level and he's in sixth grade, So I hope I'm not overstepping when I say this, but I think that there's a definite need in more mentorship. Like, if I'm being honest, those are the people that can work one-on-one and hands-on with them to attempt to catch them up to speed or to slow it down and give them the information that they need. Because I personally work with teachers. I want teachers to teach me how you want me to teach your student, so that when they walk in, you don't feel a disconnect in that realm as well. So that's what I personally believe.
Any more questions?
Well, since the first time I met you, I've been like, you're speaking my love language. So I'm so excited to see you here in our district. I guess this is a question maybe to Ken or the team around, have you been involved in conversations around joint fundraising and looking for additional support so that we can build capacity collectively beyond just the ODHS funding, which I think was 5 years, if I recall.
So to answer your question, I would say for us, we just want to get in and improve our worth. We want to get some data out there. We want to get some outcomes. We want to be able to show David Douglas that, Elevate Oregon is a little bit different than some of our, some of my friends, let's say that, and peers. I don't think right now, I feel like right now we're excited. I think as we continue to move down the road, those questions will come up, but I would leave that to you all to approach that when that time comes.
Yeah, so I would absolutely agree. I don't think we've had any formal conversation at all. In fact, the original conversation, I think, was more just dream. How do we get the door open? Mm-hmm. How do we get in? How do we get launched, for lack of a better term?
That's right.
That's there. We're charging forward. Now, Tay and I have had other conversations about next steps, growing, but we haven't gotten that far, Stephanie, to be absolutely transparent with you. But that's, kind of next steps as we continue to grow.
I want to thank you for your presentation. I feel like I so appreciate. I feel like you must have done some background study on us.
I'm a coach
because you came to answer the questions that we have not asked yet, and I really appreciate that that you have done your homework. And that you know the things, at least some of the things that are important to us concerning our students and our teachers in our district. And we are excited about the potential of the partnership and all that it seems that you have to offer us. And like Stephanie said, a lot of things that you said that just are in my background of working with students, it definitely lights up all the things and makes me miss actually that level of work with students. Quick questions are: how are students assigned to you? How do you get?
Go ahead. We'll let the director take that one.
Okay.
Well, right now we have a lot of students that were referred by principals and I believe counselors, just like students that they observed that could use. I know at Ron Russell there was like an introductory meeting of going over students that were, I believe in I always use colors, and I know that everyone, but it's like the orange zone, like those kind of kids that are like teetering before, like in between zones that were kind of referred to us, just because we were like, we can catch them before they get to, I'm going to use colors, red zone. So we kind of do those kind of discussions. I know in the future and in Park Rose, A lot of it is through other youth's mouths of like, hey, here's the program I'm in. But a lot of it is referred from teachers, from administrators, from principals, of students that may need help or may need extra support. Like I said, it isn't just academically, it could be socially as well. And then just our eyes and ears on the ground too. So like us and Lamar could speak more to that.
So I was in a unique situation where I was able to, prior to us having our class in Q1, I was able to indulge myself into the community. During that time, I went in and observed every single class. So from an A day or a B day, I sat in a class for 30, like as if I was another student. Let's just for imagination's sake. And during that time, I got to handpick some of our kids because, you know, I like the hard work. You know, I want the kids that need it the most. And so during that period of time, not only was I in class, but we were out at outdoor school. We built relationships with the outdoor school coordinator, and we're able to really see what these kids are like, what character qualities they might be missing, as well as what they might be missing academically and behavior-wise. So yes, my ear is always on the ground, but I also realize that, you know, this kid is missing something that I know that I can give them. So if I can, then I will, you know, so.
And I think a big piece of that, as well as we continue to move through, having Nia at Ventura, those fifth graders, we're able to gauge them now. So as they come into middle, so I would say the more elementaries we get into, we're able to identify these kids in fifth grade. So when they get to middle school, we already know these kids. So they go from Elevate Oregon Elementary right to Elevate Oregon Middle School. So as it continues to progress, we continue to build relationships with the district. Chair Barber, that's how it's going to work. And as they continue through sixth grade, 7, 8, and they move on to high school, we continue with them.
Okay.
And that's how word of mouth, at first it was for the bad kids. Now everybody wants to be in it because of the extra help,
Right.
The things that we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Random, you mentioned a college program. Which college does that happen at?
Oregon State.
Oregon State.
And so basically how that all came about, real quick story, and we'll end it for you. But in 2020, just sitting at home, pandemic, I'm thinking about how do you get a bridge from 122nd Street to Corvallis. And I just started researching, and it led me to some higher ups, and it led me to some other people. So when we start taking our kids on college tours, we catered it to what the kid looked like. So if it's a black kid, we catered that visit, and we set them up with mentors. They succeeded here in Elevate and in Portland because they had a mentor, a person that looked like them. So when they leave this area to go to little old Corvallis, it gets cold in the winter, they get a little bit, I want to go home, they have someone that looks like them that they've met in 7th grade. They've known them since 7th grade. So now we have all these kids of color being accepted into Oregon State in November and October, in December, and they're staying. And so now the goal is to build an Elevate Oregon at Oregon State. So when freshmen get there, it's just a student peer-to-peer, they stay. So this is bigger than, so much to say. Yeah.
And I can add to that a little bit more because I was a mentor when that relationship at Oregon State started, and it started with just a tour, and then it built into their Beaver Achiever program. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they're sending out their college students to mentor high school kids to get them prepared. So it was a perfect interaction. They would send college students out to actually work with our kids, and my caseload of kids at the time were the first group of kids that they worked with, and it just grew from there to where they were just introducing kids to what college is. This is what it looks like, this is what day-to-day, and then they also were presenting curriculum for them of like, here's how to build your class, here's how to be successful in college. And then it came into, okay, we're going to continue once a month. It became a once a month thing, and then it turned into Oregon State actually got a grant and they were like, hey, Elevate, we want to give you some of the money from this grant. And then it built stronger as the years go on, and they actually pay now and support some of our kids' tuition. So a lot of our kids, their goal now is to get Elevate students and more students of color at Oregon State. So I work with a lot of people at Oregon State on what do those kids need, how can we get them here? And so that's where I have to listen to what do the kids need, how can we get them there? And we're able to, I believe we have about 6 graduated Elevate students at Oregon State right now. A lot of them, their tuition is being paid for from Oregon State's program within the work of Elevate. So they want to give us the money to pay to help pay, like promote it for our kids to get out and to get exposed to college. So it's just built throughout the years.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
We appreciate your presentation and you being here tonight.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we need to meet with you. No, Miss O'Neill. Curriculum lady. That's the curriculum lady. But thank you. Thank you all for having us. Appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. We are going to deviate a little bit in our agenda tonight and jump ahead to our data report because we have a student that's involved with that report and we know the time is late. So we want to jump ahead to that report right now. And that is on discipline and restorative practices. Florence, you're going to lead that for us.
Do you guys want to? Yeah, go ahead. They're like kind of like right midpoint, but I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again for kind of asking for an update and seeing how things are going. I'm looking at the presentation and it looks like it's partially cut off, so you may have some missing information than what's on the screen. We'll just kind of make it work. The restorative practices work that we are doing, oh, there we go. Sandy will just move it side to side. Thank you. Is a 5-year U.S. Department of Education grant that we received. We are in year 5 of 5. It's so hard to believe that it's already been 5 years ago where I think I was sitting over there saying, wow, we just got all this money and here's what we're going to do. So we're kind of moving into the last year of it. It was restorative practices, mindfulness, and SEL. So just a little bit of everything. Kind of where we are currently, I mentioned we're in the last year of the grant funds. We're really, the U.S. Department of Ed shared that if we haven't spent out our money due to not being able to do activities yet, due to the COVID-19 lost time, that they will grant some grantees the opportunity to go into a year 6. So we will know more about that as we move into the spring and see if there's anything that we weren't able to do to Fidelity that we need a little bit more time for and then put in for that request. What we're focusing on this year is kind of our last year of the grant, specifically with the restorative practices portions, is to focus on coaching. We have 2 coaches coming out about monthly from National Educators for Restorative Practices, and working with buildings are doing sign-ups and kind of, I send out an email that says, hey, they're coming to town, sign up for what you want. And they've gone into buildings, they've worked with administrators, they've worked with students. You'll get to hear a little bit of the work in one of the presentations I'll share on what they're doing. Another part that we're kind of focusing on is ensuring that all administrators and our restorative practice champions are getting experiences. Kind of one of those things is like folks are like, we're going to get experts. No, you get experiences and you practice and you practice and you practice and you know, it's like training. No, you just keep practicing and you keep getting better. And so that is what we're hoping that our administrators and our restorative practice champions are getting. And then also, you heard a little bit about it already. Sabrina and Gabby mentioned it when they were talking about our equity work. But really looking at embedding restorative practices within behavior and equity, kind of making sure that it's merged and we're working together and it's not all of this separate pieces. I know like Elevate Oregon just spoke, and I had an opportunity to meet with them a couple weeks ago and talk about this is the language we use, this is how we do it. And that way, as they're doing activities, they're also referring to the same language. So kids are like, wait, is this a different thing or anything? So it's all aligned. This is just from a little bit earlier, kind of just a little bit of background as a reminder. National Educators for Restorative Practices have been coming out for the last few years and training our staff. We have focused on the relationship-centered tools. So looking at 60-second relate breaks, 2-minute connects, some sparks, teacher tools, counselor tools, like kind of a little bit of everything. All of these are grounded in getting to know students. So the adult getting to know students, students getting to know each other, and students getting to know the adults. A lot of times we focus on relationships being, yes, I know my students, but then do the students know each other in the classroom? Do the students also know you? So these tools are really grounded in that relationship-centered learning. This year and towards the end of last year, we focused on administrator tools. Thank you. With leadership teams in buildings, they focused on 4 key areas: restorative conversations, re-entry meetings, and needs mapping. And then also restorative conferences and restorative circles. These are tools that administrators or leadership teams, counselors, it really depends on who's responding in that moment, are using with students. So there's an incident that takes place, and then you kind of wrap around to figure out, how am I going to respond in this? And Doug will talk a little bit about this. Sabrina mentioned like there was conflict between 2 families, and they had a restorative conversation, and they were able to kind of navigate through challenges. One thing that I'm seeing a lot of teams use right now is something called needs mapping. It is kind of looking at the student as a whole child, and what are the needs and how do we help meet those needs? Talking to the student, asking them, what are your needs? How can I help you? And then developing a plan to be able to figure out like, yep, this I can control, this I can control, this I can't, but let's figure out how to figure this out. Some of our student intervention teams, so from the academic perspective and from the behavior perspective, are using that model to look for areas that students just need a little extra love and support in. And folks have been they've been sharing stories of success with that. Lincoln Park is one of the schools that I wanted to highlight today. They were unable to be here today, so I am going to share their information with you. All administrators, as part of our summer book study, read a book called Street Data. Specifically, it was Street Data, a next generation model for equity, pedagogy, and school transformation by Shane Saphir and Jamila Dugan. And within that, there was a couple of activities that folks did. And Lincoln Park, and you'll hear a little bit from Floyd Light as well, interviewed students and looked at their data and kind of figured out, what do we do next? Lincoln Park's goals specifically are through behavior. They're looking at eliminating disparity in referrals for Black students from Lincoln Park. So our school board targets from the spring. From an academic perspective, eliminating disparity in reading ability for Latinx students at Lincoln Park. And then using culturally responsive teaching strategies, so real life experiences and cooperative learning structures. What they did was then to figure out, they looked at their data and wanted to see what are the root causes, what is causing this, and really figure out, not just sitting and admiring, but digging down into the why. The questions that are hard to read, at least from here. Do you like how your teacher treats you when you need help? Does your teacher treat you with respect? Is your teacher fair to you? And do you think your teacher cares about you? And then they took this information and dug down a little bit deeper and did some interviews. Specifically, one thing is, it's not about the data through referrals. It's about every referral is a kid and a story, and it's figuring out how do we support what the needs are. So again, kind of what I mentioned earlier, this is what Holly Wilkes over at Lincoln Park really dug into. The prompts for the interviews One more. The prompts for the interview questions with the students were, tell me about a time when you loved being in school and what would you make different here at school? So really kind of just getting into what are our kid thoughts. And kind of the data summarized. A lot of it was teachers play with me. I'm going to kind of share the story with Holly. She had shared, she's like, I love to eat pizza with my teacher. She wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that doesn't happen every day. Those are on special days. There's some type of an event they do. But the focus is like, I like being a helper. We should show little kids how to be responsible. I would make a bigger library with more books, a bigger gym so we could run around, and more musical instruments. There were 16 students who were interviewed. 2 reported feelings of bias, and 1 used the word racism. So they really looked at the gamut of the information. From there, they determined what their next steps were going to be, and then started executing. Leadership clubs, including a junior restorative practice champions, which I will get to share a clip of that in just a few minutes. Starting a Black affinity space in the 5th grade, and Gabby is going to be working with the Lincoln Park team to get that up and running. Exploring engagement strategies that allow students to work in collaborative groups and build friendships, and then continued work with staff around implicit bias. So really taking that feedback and developing actionable steps. Last week, one of the folks that we are working with from National Educators for Restorative Practices is kind of nicknamed Circle Mama, and folks love her, and she visited Lincoln Park and did a restorative practice training for students with their leadership team. And here is a little video clip about that.
Are you? So, my name is Denise Holiday, but most people know me as Circle Mama because I get to travel the nation and facilitate circles with students, families, and teachers from all over. What makes a good leader?
I think it's about making sure that you lead people in the right direction. I think a good leader is about making good choices and also making good examples.
And so when we say that, what does that look like exactly? So we're not going to call people names. We're going to be kind to the other friends. I want you to put that into action. Like, what does that look like as a leader if you saw it? Okay.
Well, that's. Yo, you good? Yo.
I love it. Oh, well, she knows she don't really mean it.
Okay, I'll pretend we're just talking. That is stupid. Mari, you shouldn't say that's about. That's not nice. I'm trying to get that.
Oh, I love it. So what is required to stand up and we're modeling right now, but what about when it's somebody you don't know? You need confidence. Confidence is required.
Braveness. So, how about
bravery? You're right.
Is there anything that's hard about being a leader at school?
Sometimes kids don't pay attention since we're also kids. Processing like questions to ask.
Oh, yeah, it's tricky. What do you think about things like teachers greeting students at the door, taking time in class to do relate breaks or play games? Do you think there's anything about that that helps make learning better?
It can help you transition to the next thing. So you think gives you like a better relationship with your teacher.
Okay, thank you much.
It's not always comfortable to stand in that spot where people are watching you and looking up to you. But guess what? Everything that you need to change the way you want your school to feel and be is in this room. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
All right, so just a little glimpse into that. Denise and her daughter Avery will be out here actually next month, and maybe visiting us as audience members. If you have any questions, or if you want to go out into buildings and see what she is doing, I am happy to share that schedule with you. Folks are signing up tomorrow. The other building we're going to highlight some of that restorative practices work and relationship-centered learning is Floyd Light. And our principal and vice principal are here, and they brought a special guest, so I will let them introduce.
Thank you very much for having us, and really honored to present to all of you. And I do want to thank you for pushing this up a little bit. I thank you very much. I do want to make sure that you know that Dina Wynn is our vice principal, and this is Nato. And Nato's an 8th grader. I've known him since he was a 6th grader. I've actually known him, he doesn't really know this, since he was a lot younger, because I've known his family for about 8 years. So when I called his mother and said, can Nato come with us, she didn't even hesitate and said absolutely. So just want you to know that. I'm going to quickly go through some slides. I know you have access to them. I'm not going to read everything on it. And then we're going to have Ms. Wen and Nato do a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll have some questions and answers if you have any. So we do have similar goals as Lincoln Park, and we did the empathy interviews that Florence mentioned, and we're going to show 4 of them, just from a variety of students. On these slides, students self-identified their racial identity, and you'll see that. And we purposely chose 2 students that have no behavior incidents, referrals, and 2 that did have some in the past. So we did that on purpose. So here's our first, an 8th grader. And I'll quickly read the questions, and then we highlighted some. So tell me about a time you love being in school. What would you make different here at school? What helps you feel confident to speak in class? What helps you feel welcomed? When you feel you are being listened to? All right. When do you laugh at school, and what makes you believe you can succeed? So this student said, some of the teaching feels too strict and some feels too loose. So we take that to heart. I think that's an important information for us. What helps you feel confident to speak in class? The right teacher. And then we want to dig deeper into that. What, quote, is the right teacher, and what makes you feel confident? So that's something that we want to look at. Next slide. This student, I forget, 6th grade, Stop the bullying. So that's also good information. And then we want to celebrate what helps you feel welcome. Teachers, there was a theme of that, and we're very proud of that. So, an 8th grade student had some behavior incidents last year. Currently, just 1 for tardies this year. I got to, tell me a time when you love being in school. I got to see the office staff and my friends. When do you feel you're being listened to? And this was an eye-opener for me. I didn't mean that pun. When there's direct eye contact. And, sometimes we talk about, side to side, and that's important. But this student has given us insight. Sometimes it's important to look a student straight in the eye. And then again, we're celebrating who believes you can succeed. I think all teachers. Thank you. I took the liberty of saying, tell me a time when you love being in school. Math. I'm a former math teacher, so I had to highlight that. So you don't hear that often from students, so I had to do that. But this is a student that has had quite a few births last year and is being very successful this year. And as you read through here, you'll see that they're having some good experiences at Floyd Light. So some celebration there. Okay. So our next steps, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but as a staff, we are having affinity groups to make our staff feel more comfortable when we're going through our equity lessons. Also, we are doing a big emphasis on our Wednesday morning data teams, and that's, we know that we want a welcoming environment. Our data teams are really digging down into our academics for our students. And then one thing I want to just reiterate is our discipline responses to our students. I heard something from Florence that Sabrina may have mentioned a restorative conference that we had just 2 days ago. Sabrina was able to be there, and that was a huge success, and it's one of many that we've had. We've probably done a couple of dozen restorative conferences between students, and a couple of times we've had both sets of caregivers come in. We've done it probably 4 times in the last 2 years, and it's really been successful. And at the end of the one, I don't know if Sabrina said, this is the first time this has happened. Our goal is to make sure that the conflict doesn't continue, and we've been very successful with that. At the end of this one, 2 8th graders got up, shook hands, and then they hugged. And they were having a conflict before that. It was just very successful. We have really embraced these restorative practices and restorative conferences, and now I look forward to doing them. I just automatically say, when you're calmed down because you've just had a conflict, I want to talk about a restorative conference, and really it's been very successful, and our whole staff has bought into it, and very, very happy about that. And then I did mention that we, as we've done the last 15 years, do the PBIS, and we reteach. We have renamed our ISS room into Opportunity Hall, and we really embrace when a student does come back from a suspension, which we still have those consequences. They go into Opportunity Hall and really talk about teaching a different way to when you have a conflict, a different way of dealing with it, and we have embraced that. I am going to turn this over to Ms. Nguyen, and we're going to hear some student voice, and we tried to prep him, and I think he's going to do a great job.
All right, so a little background with NATO and I is the vice principal of middle schools. We do the disciplinary action a lot more, and so, you know, NATO has shown so much maturity and growth in this time. I know, I'm like super short. So obviously I just met NATO last year, and we've had incidents, and then we ourselves have had restorative conversations, and now we're at a spot where we do get along and we can tease each other because he's a Cowboys fan and I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. Or today for Spirit Day was teachers dress as students and students dress as teachers. NATO was such a gem that I got to dress as him today, and he asked for a photo, so that's a win for me. So a question that I asked NATO today before coming was, you know, what has changed significantly for you from last year compared to this year to be successful? And I thought his answer was really good, and I asked him to share it. You're up.
I said teachers were more strict than last year. It makes me focus more because last year I wasn't in class like that no more. But this year I'm in class more than usual. I take breaks now and then, but yeah.
And so I did ask him to clarify the strictness part, and he did say, can I? Yes, okay, thanks. He said, like, the expectations were more clear. Like, what you expect of us, like, where we should be, was more clear, and then there was follow-through of those expectations. Oh, you're meeting them? Good. We want to support you, right? And if you're not, oh, we're going to reteach you. We're going to work on this over and over, right? And so, and when NATO says he needs a break, that's what he voiced to us. He's like, all I need is, like, 10-minute break sometimes to check in with an adult. And he gets that. So sometimes he'll come up to the office, he has a timer, he sets it 10 minutes, and whichever adult's available he wants to check in with, sometimes it's our head secretary, sometimes it's Mr. P, sometimes it's myself, and he'll just check in, right? And like, and it's like we don't always have to talk about academics. We can just talk about sports. He plays football at our school. He plays basketball. Trying to convince him to do wrestling next. We'll see. He's saying he's not strong enough. I've seen him. But he's actually never met a staff member that can keep up with him speed-wise, because I chased him down last year, and he knew. He was like, oh, okay, I see you, right? He's a fast kid. So there's just a lot, like that conversation, that relationship, that it is truly so important to us, and we're seeing that work come to fruition, right? It's like we're seeing it in the classroom. We're seeing it in our hallways. A kid that's changing right in front of us. It's been just amazing. Anything else?
You said it all.
Okay.
But
okay. Oh, he doesn't.
I wasn't running fast enough. Okay.
Oh, he wasn't running fast enough.
I wasn't, but.
Okay.
So at this time, if you have any questions, we're willing to answer anything that you have.
NATO is prepared as well.
Yeah, we told him that there could be questions.
NATO, I just wanted to say what you're doing here is I appreciate it a lot. You know, you're representing your school right now. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Even I'm up here every month, and I get nervous. You know, talking to all these adults. It's what you're doing is really courageous.
Aaron's a high school student in student government. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was going to ask you, NATO, what's helping you feel? Sorry, it's kind of hard to see where the sound's coming from. What's helping you feel more connected this year? I guess last year you had a lot of referrals and stuff, but this year you're doing really well. What's the biggest difference for you?
I got mature, and I wanted to chill out from last year, and because I wanted to focus more on sports and my grades, and like I didn't want to slip up again, so I wanted to stay in the right path and don't go back into that lane or path or whatever.
Sounds like just being given the opportunity to excel, you just want to keep excelling. Well, thank you, and thanks for being here. I'm kind of an introvert, and I know it's really nerve-wracking to be behind the mic, and I really appreciate you coming out tonight. So what are the differences? I got to say, personal disclosure, I had a son who was suspended for fighting this year, did the restorative circle, got to go to the opportunity hall on the way back. It was really nice. The person that could have been an ongoing conflict ended up as a friend, and they've connected since then, and I think it was really a huge learning tool for my son, and I really appreciate that. I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to give them away. But what are the biggest differences you're seeing this year having these conversations versus sort of like the way things would have been done, years ago?
I really have appreciated the success that we have had when we get students together, and it's given us as adults more confidence to have that conversation and to not automatically exclude kids from school and exclude them less has been very successful. And we thought, oh no, are they going to know they're being held accountable? And they really are. And we have seen, I can't say the word very well, but when you do it again, recidivism, that has gone way, way down. And I know for a fact it's because we're doing this restorative, and we're getting to the heart of the conflict and talking about that and letting students, and their voice too. That's one thing I wrote down in my notes that I forgot to say, is that they're voicing what they're feeling, and the other student is hearing that, and there's really making a connection there. So, and
yeah,
Dina, do you?
No, I would say same student voice and ownership of their actions, their roles in each incident that occurs. And so allowing the other partner in the incident to hear it, so from their perspective, so hearing one another is so powerful, and then having that mediator in like of an adult running the conversation, just to make sure like we're balanced. We hear both sides. We're not blaming one side or the other. It's just we're balanced in it. We just want to hear out what other people's ideas of what happened or occurred, and so that they can restore that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I know that really helped with my son because he didn't really even understand how he'd stepped on the kid's toes, and then it escalated and escalated, and then they were able to kind of hug it out, which is kind of wild. So I really appreciate that approach. I had a question for Florence. So if you get an extra year, you said you might be able to get an extra year. What's that going to mean to the program that you've been developing?
It'll just be able to really embed it more. Again, it's just gaining that experience and the confidence. I think that was the word. I love that word that you used. It's the more you practice, the more confident you get. And it's hard to be in situations where you're trying something new and empowering student voice, empowering the adults to be able to help facilitate that conversation. Just takes time and practice. And we missed 2 years of that, what we were hoping to do and train, and then give several years of experience and practice and gaining the confidence. So hopefully just to be able to extend it in one more year of coaching, being able to continue to onboard new staff that are coming on, and just keep going deeper with the work. It also takes several years to kind of get systems up and running, and I kind of feel like we're right at the beginning of that, and the grant's done. But as a district and as cabinet and as everyone like sitting around this table, is we're really figuring out ways to how to continue this work without that large amount of money, and we're training folks and we're training our own internal staff and just building that capacity. So.
Oh, thank you. I had one more question. I was just wondering what you said. The data teams do their reports once a week. What's a data team? I hadn't heard that term before. Or if I had, I hadn't.
Yeah, I'm going to let Dina's put I'm not putting Dina. She has put a lot of work into it, and I think she can articulate it a little bit better than me.
Oh, thank you.
So what are they? So it's a collaboration. It's in place of what was formerly at David Douglas's PLTs. So we're trying to be very rigorous and like intentional in how our teams meet together. And so with in middle school at our level, we're having them meet in grade level department teams. Thank you. And so we're doing 2 cycles. So the first one is they identified their essential standards that they wanted to focus on. And then within each cycle and standard, we identified like a pre-assessment, right? And then they identified the pre-assessment. They looked at that data and identified like where do we want students to be? And then how do we get there? So what interventions can we do when students are not there? What enrichment programs or activities can we do to make sure we can keep students at that level or push them next level, right? To the next. So we don't want to just be stagnant. We continue to grow. And then we do a midpoint check to make sure it's kind of reflective of, are we being rigorous enough in our teaching to get these students at the level we want them to be? And then again, we reevaluate that data, and then do interventions and enrichment, and then it goes post-assessment, right? And then so it's 2 cycles in that the next cycle will be a completely different standard. And the idea is right now, since we're just David Douglas is going back to this plan that was previous in the past. I say previously, and I think you can hear it. This is only my 2nd year in Douglas, so it's something new for me. I'm learning. And so with this school year, we're focusing on 2 cycles, and the idea is when at Floyd Light in June, we would like to do an assessment so that it goes and it runs through and it will cycle back to us for September for our next, so like our 7th grade math department team would do an assessment, and somehow they could pass it to our 8th grade team to kind of show them this is where they were in June and how can you push them next level. So ours is the idea of our data teams is that we could cycle it through to push to the next grade level. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want to say we've been working very hard, and I think we've been successful in creating a welcoming environment, but we want to take that to the next level and have it translate to achievement and growth. And that's what we're focusing on the data teams. We're continuing to do the welcoming and that, but we want to push it to the next level and make sure they're growing academically.
Sorry, and I would add, like, we don't want to keep assessing students, right? That is not the way of education. But also at the same time, there's a certain level that I believe in, that you assess them to build up this rigor and stamina to take down those barriers of feeling anxious over an assessment, right? So if you continue doing it and showing them, giving them that practice, then the anxiousness of assessments does kind of dwindles a little, is my belief. And I've had experience in it, and we've had good growth, and so that's just something that ties in with what we're doing.
All right. We're going to need to move ahead, but I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Thank you, Nato, for being here, and for your courage. And you add a dimension that nobody else could bring outside of your voice. So we thank you for stepping up in that way and representing your the other students in your school as well. Thank you, Florence and Mr. Peace, and just all of you for all the work that you're doing. And we just want to encourage you to continue, and we are looking forward to hearing more and more in the future.
Madam Chair, I just want to say to NATO, I know you're a Floyd Light student and you don't have class tomorrow, so I hope you get a chance to sleep in and enjoy your vacation. Thank you for coming late on the last day of school.
NATO, I got a question for you. Who's your favorite player?
On what?
Football. I heard Cowboys.
I was trying to overlook that.
I know.
Right?
We got an Eagles fan up here. I'm just telling you.
I would say Ray Lewis, like current or all time?
It's up to you. Up to you. Whatever you want to tell me.
All right, so current, it's Travis Kelce, but all time.
Sorry.
See?
But all time, it's Ray Lewis and Michael Vick.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing that. I want to echo what our student ASB president talked about courage. Our board chair just talked about courage. I want to use another word, and that word's strength. To dig up here, it's strong to talk about you and your conviction in yourself and always being a better person. And I want to also use another word. That word's leadership, right? You're a natural leader, and I want to thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing your transition to high school, seeing you play some football, basketball, whatever it is at high school, and leadership class. I'd love to see you coming back here when you're in high school, communicating to us what's going well and what's not. So, little challenge for you, but I look forward to seeing you succeed. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm willing to overlook the Dallas thing. All right. Thank you. All right, and now we're going to hear from Miss O'Neill and our early literacy grant tonight.
Okay, and Elise and Francesca are coming up. So
I do want to, can I just, and just reminding everybody, my fellow board members, myself, and all, that we want to be mindful of the time tonight. So, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for this time. We're here to talk to you tonight about Oregon's Early Literacy Success Initiative, which is House Bill 3198, and a component of that. This totally aligns with the governor's executive order related to strengthening educator preparation for literacy instruction. The beautiful thing about this initiative and House bill is that it comes with funding. That doesn't always happen. And so it's been a very short cycle. This grant opened, we've had about a month to write it, and I really want to give a shout out to Elise and Francesca because they've been working really hard, and the rules of the grant are changing as we write it. You'll hear tonight that this is a jump start. It's just laying a foundation for future work, but we're also in really good shape because of some of the work that they've already already started with literacy instruction. You'll hear about our core curriculum adoption, about ECRI implementation, but this is about deepening the work and going further. It does require board approval. This grant is due January 8th, so we need your approval in order to submit it. So I'm going to hand it over to Elise and Francesca.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. And I just wanted to go through a little bit of a review about the grant. I know that you received a summary of the Early Literacy Success Grant for school districts, but this is a non-competitive application-based grant. It's annual, so we get an amount for this year and we get an amount for the following year that must be spent out by September 30th of 2025. And it is used to support early literacy plans that are research-based. You'll hear that research-based, research-aligned across all of the areas and components of the grant. For the first 2 years of the grant, which is what we are sharing with you our plan today, the grant will address grades 4th and 5th grade, but as the grant continues on and lives on, it will only be a kindergarten through 3rd grade grant. So we will only be able to address kindergarten through 3rd grade activities. There will be a birth to 5 grant that is going to be forthcoming. ODE is still developing what that will look like, but that would be, as they develop and give out more information, I'm sure we'll find out more, but our understanding is that's where preschool will live within this work. So so we look forward to that and aligning all of our plans with that as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. The grant must address multiple components. Those components include professional development and coaching, again in that research-aligned literacy strategies. It also must address extended learning programs. Those are after school or during the summer. And it must also address high-dosage tutoring, which would occur during the school day. Furthermore, it addresses that we must have in place a research-aligned curriculum and that we can use these funds for literacy specialists, coaches, or interventionists to support all of these components. I'm going to turn it over to Francesca.
Okay, so we know that the first step of any grant process or program process is a needs assessment. So that's where we begin with this work. And the needs assessment in this case is called the Early Learning Program Review. And it's informed by our new ODE Early Literacy Framework in order to ensure that it's aligned to current best practice. You can see the areas that are covered include things like student belonging, family partnerships, research-based reading models, writing, reading comprehension, core instruction, all of those things that have been a big part of our conversation in recent times anyway. But really that our purpose in that needs assessment were to evaluate where we currently are in these 8 areas and determine where our strengths and opportunities lie. Next slide. So we know, I think the board shares, cabinet shares, all of us share that our immediate and urgent goal is to improve literacy outcomes for our students. And this is a complex process. If there was a simple formula, we would all be doing it and things would be great, but we are definitely learning and growing and learning from others and sharing that work. But you can see up there, there's a set of puzzle pieces, and these are really a lot of the things that come together to create improved literacy outcomes. So we see things like a vision and high quality instructional materials, a coherent student support system, professional learning, accountability, all of these pieces that we know are important. And so one celebration in doing the needs assessment was that there wasn't one area here where we felt like, oh, we haven't been talking about that or we haven't been addressing that. All of these things have really been on our radar. And so it really came in doing this application to look at, if we can go to the next slide, how we put these things together as a puzzle that is intentional and that fits together in a way that has the desired outcomes, because all of those things could be in place in a misaligned way and we won't see the outcomes that we want to. And so when we see these all fit together, we really want to think about in this Jumpstart Biennium, our goal is about to building systems and internal capacity to keep this work going. So these first 2 years are really about building that strong foundation, and we're really focused, and hopefully you'll see throughout this plan that our goal is to be able to continue the work that's in progress that you've already heard about that we want to strengthen, but also to strengthen and expand existing strong practices, and really to double down on those things that experience and research are showing us are going to be the most impactful for student outcomes. And this really allows us to be able to do that because we want to see things in place in this grant that are going to have a direct impact on student achievement. So the first kind of bucket, we'll call it, of funding is to go to professional development and coaching. And I will say, especially in this initial biennium, you'll see a big focus here because, as I said, we're really trying to build that internal capacity. So one thing that has become really clear in the research is that having coaching is really key to be that bridge to practice. So we do, training and learning and theory, but really coaching is that piece that pushes it over the edge into practice and into implementation. And so you can see the grant application guidance there about that this professional development and coaching is really about being in those research-aligned strategies and supporting teachers and administrators with being able to implement the things that we've adopted that are aligned to these strategies. So we were able to do a survey from teachers, specialists, administrators, and paraprofessionals. It's, as Brooke mentioned, it's been a very tight turnaround. So I would say, in this Jumpstart, we probably haven't been able to get as much feedback as we would hope to get for the next round, but we did put this opportunity out to all schools and administrators or elementaries. And from those results, we really asked, what are the professional learning topics that you feel like you need more of to be able to impact and accelerate student literacy learning in your school? And you can see, a good large portion, about 3/4, are looking for foundational skills instruction for our 3rd through 5th graders. So you've heard us talk about ECRI a lot here. ECRI is a K-2 program. It doesn't exist for 3rd through 5th grade. And so really working at how can we take some of those things that we know are working in ECRI and expand them up to 3rd through 5th grade. And then also a focus on continued deepening and strengthening and expanding of our ECRI implementation in small group and whole group and with our instructional assistants. And then the third top response with 63% was more training in the science of reading and in our early literacy framework and what that looks like in practice. So our plan for the professional development and coaching portion of the grant, again, that theme is really on that building internal capacity. So you'll see our first item there when we look at ECRI in K through 2, knowing that our teachers are expressing a great need for this continued work as well, is to establish a coaching and trainer of trainers model in our district, where we have people who are internal, who are trained to provide ECRI coaching and training, to be able to host lab classrooms and build our ability to do that work within our own district. Right now, anytime that we want to do that coaching, which our teachers have said is so valuable, it's all contracted out. And so we want to build that capacity within our district to support that ongoing work. We also know from our ECRI experts and coaches we've worked with that as implementation continues, you can start to see some drift as people get more comfortable. And we know that with ECRI, the key is really that it stays in that explicit model. And so that would also help support continued refinement of those practices. For 3rd through 5th foundational skills focus, we really, as I mentioned, want to build on the success of ECRI and really train our intermediate teachers in that foundational skills knowledge. Really thinking about, all of our students benefit from foundational skills reading instruction in 3rd through 5th, but for some of them it is absolutely critical. And so we want to ensure that all of our teachers are equipped to deliver that strong core instruction to all of our students. And then continued science of reading training. Our goal is to get our teachers who are currently in the process of letters through letters. We've talked about letters training before as a very pretty intensive, rigorous program, and so we want to provide more support for the teachers who are in progress to be able to do that. Part of that will include extending some licenses that are close to expiration, but with more guided intention around supporting them through that process. We're also exploring the possibility of offering stipends as incentives, so looking at what some of the districts around us are doing and the impact of offering stipends for letters completion. And then some continued research-aligned literacy, PD. Again, that was expressed as a need to continue that understanding of the science of reading. So looking at our participation in the Oregon Response to Intervention Conference, as well as some really targeted work around assessment literacy and understanding how and why we use the assessments that we do and how they can be used to guide instruction. And then some mapping revision work. We've talked a lot about our curriculum mapping process here already, but how we can then apply that science of reading to some revision work to our maps now that we're going to have had a year of learning. The final line item there for our first year of the biennium is the addition of 2 early literacy TOSAs. And the focus of those roles would be really as side-by-side coaching, mentoring type roles. Ideally being able to share schools. So we know we don't have enough funding to put one in every building, but to be able to have them split the schools so that they can become really a part of those school communities, get to know those K-2 teachers and coaches and how to support, and to be able to be those in-house ECRI trainers, to be able to continue to refine the implementation of ECRI, to coordinate those lab classrooms and be the coach in the ear in those peer observations and lab classrooms to help refine that practice, and to be able to support coaching and modeling across schools. They would also be equipped to help support that letters completion and to bring people together around the letters learning and to really help with that bridge to practice. So the hope would be that they would be really in the buildings, engaging in the work and building relationships in their assigned schools, and supporting buildings as well with things like data review and decision making as well. So the other part of that is, I know Elise mentioned the birth to 5 possibility as well in the future, but thinking about this position as also one that can help bridge our pre-K to our K-5 system, so being able to create some more alignment across our early childhood into elementary as well. And then you'll see in the 24-25 year, it's really a continuation of all those things that are started in the 23-24 year, with the addition of the implementation of an early literacy team that is district-wide, that includes teachers, specialists across the district. This is a best practice that's really outlined in the guidance provided by ODE's literacy framework, as well as instruction partners who they gleaned a lot of their work from, the power of having a team of educators that are working together and focused on that laser focus on our literacy goals that have been established and our progress towards those, and pivots and adjustments we might need to make along the way based on that data.
So I'm going to speak to the other components of the grant, which include high dosage tutoring. You can see that we did include this in our survey of our staff, and the interest in high dosage tutoring and using this grant to further the training for our tutors on our curriculum programs. And in high dosage tutoring, tutors can be high quality tutors, which are instructional assistants who are trained in our tutoring programs. So we have a focus on providing supports for our instructional assistants, as well as an interest in coordination between core and intervention resources. So we're looking at our data for our students and looking at how attendance is impacting student outcomes. And we believe that that if we can create systems that are more aligned for our students, that when they are there will be more consistency, more coherency for them, and that could really further their outcomes. So that's something that we are exploring. So the other part of this grant that's built in is that there's a 25% match that is expected from each district. And our match is completed by high dosage tutoring. We are already providing tutoring supports for our students through our multi-tiered systems, our response to intervention and instruction programs. So when a student is in our elementary schools and receives a reading intervention that is research aligned, they are receiving high dosage tutoring as it's defined by the state. And so that is our current 25% match. And what we are currently doing, we want to just enhance those systems. So then the other part you can see is not only providing ongoing support for our paraeducators, and also reviewing our intervention programs and how they align and how they support our students. But in the second year of this grant, looking at having a 0.5 TOSA who would be an expert in multilingual learners literacy acquisition and would also support our dual language immersion program for literacy acquisition, especially through an intervention or high dosage tutoring lens. So that's included in our plan. And our next slide, please. The final big component of the grant is extended learning. You can see how that is defined at the top of the slide, and that the interest from our staff in providing extended learning was in providing ECRI whole group instruction during the summer to really support students and try to limit summer slide. The other area of interest was in providing small group summer reading support for our most striving students. So our plan includes looking at summer school for 1st through 3rd grade this summer and working with our SUN programs, but it would be a literacy-based program this summer. And then the other component that we are reviewing is a home-based program, so ways that our families and our caregivers can support students at home, and looking at what options and resources there would be for that. We also know that we have our Title I program includes caregiver events and pairing with our schools, our elementary schools, in what they're providing supports for families with our research-aligned practices and building that more consistently across the district. So that would be part of that extended learning, as well as on the next slide for communication. So a couple components of this grant are having a communication plan and having one that is ongoing. So our ongoing plan is, of course, aligned to our district processes and systems as well as our priorities. And we would continue to strengthen those caregiver supports and also provide school-based outreach, surveys, community forums. Future communication plans will align with the integrated grants process. This will be embedded into that overarching process. So next slide, please. The requirements for this grant also include research-aligned curriculum and a student growth assessment. And I'm really proud to be here tonight to be able to say, like, we are so thankful to the board for having approved a research-aligned core curriculum that we adopted in 2022 and in our second year of implementation. So we do meet the requirements of the state in this area and don't need to use the grant funds to address this need. We also have a student growth assessment. It is Acadience reading, which we fondly call DIBBLES, and that we use to screen all of our students and can use that data to meet the needs and the guidelines of this grant. And next slide, please. So just finally, some of the grant logistics. All the funds must be spent by September 30th of 2025. And only a minimal amount of the funds within this year and next year can be directed to 4th and 5th grade, Ultimately, after that, all of the district success literacy funds need to be addressing K through 3 literacy. It's a non-competitive grant. It will be ongoing, and ODE is continuing to develop the grant rules for future grant years. This grant will be embedded in the integrated guidance grant, so in an overarching, much bigger grant, so it would be something we would be presenting on, embedded into other grants that we have as a district. And once we receive board approval, we are able to submit to the state for approval, and with the state approval, we will be able to begin spending and starting to implement our plans. So this grant is due on January 8th, and we are set to meet that goal because we really want to start implementing our plan. So my final slide is just asking for any questions that you have and that we can help to illuminate our plans for the grant.
Okay. Amazing. Just 2 quick questions. I think one of them you kind of answered about the limited amount of funds that could be spent on 4th, 5th. I was curious on the professional development and coaching. The explicit instruction for the 3rd to 5th grade foundational skills is a really small amount of money. So I was kind of curious, like, what can you purchase for $10,000 that would be useful?
Yeah, so our focus is going to be on using what we have and then enhancing that and applying research-aligned strategies to what we have. And so those funds that you saw there were applied to coaches to come in and support us and train us, very similar to the model we've used with ECRI because we found such success with that. Mm-hmm. So what ideally we want to use the materials, the resources in HMH and layer in more explicit instruction practices and to provide to meet the needs of our students. So it isn't in purchasing, it's just in layering in more explicit instruction routines and training on those.
Very cool. And then with the ECRI K2 trainer of trainers, how many trainer of trainers are we anticipating with that?
We want a bevy of trainers.
Like are you envisioning every elementary school?
We want someone in every elementary school to be a trainer of trainers, and maybe where their skill level is in being a lab classroom. So in the trainer of trainers program, they could be operating like at a very high level, and what they provide to our district is a lab classroom. So any long-term sub, any new teachers could go and see the lesson that they're going to be teaching and what it looks like in a very masterful way. And then we would also have within our district people who can train new staff, so new teachers, train IAs, and train long-term subs. So what we want to develop is a multi-level of trainers based on their comfort level, but also that knowing that transitions happen, and so we want to be prepared for that. Ultimately, we do want to have someone who is masterful in ECRI at every elementary building.
Yeah. Very impressive. Love it.
That's awesome. I had a question. So if the grant is due early January, when would you expect to hear back? And then when would the approval be? Like, what's kind of the timeline of like getting started?
We are unsure of when we will hear back because it's all so brand new. Francesca and I have sat on the rules committee. We've sat in different committees, so we believe that we have a very strong plan that we can get approval, and we are ready as soon as we do have approval to begin starting. We have other grant funds that we can use to start some of the work that we're already doing and to get the ball rolling, but I'm not sure how long it will take ODE to get back to us. This is a state grant, and so all districts, I would assume, are applying during the same timeline as us.
Totally. And with the other grant that you mentioned that you could get started on certain things, what would be the aspects that we could get started sooner? even without the approval of this grant, knowing that like we do have a strong case and, that's the hope?
Currently, we do have a plan for ECRI coaches that we are contracting out, and they are coming into the district. We were able to schedule them, and so we have dates upcoming in February as well as in April. So that is something that is layered into this plan, but is something already occurring. We also have ECRI training occurring for our interventionists. So that's another component. And we are reviewing our interventions that we have and looking to see how they are research aligned, do they best meet the needs, and to develop a better pathway for our students.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just one general question. I wondered, just listening to the presentation, do you feel that higher ed is adequately preparing teachers to teach literacy? No, okay. Because I'm just thinking about how much we're hearing about professional development, how much training we're having to do. So we need to push higher ed to do better. Okay.
That's an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
It's a real conversation, and you
Yeah.
nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we open for public comment. If there is any public comment tonight on the early learning grant. If not, then we will take a brief recess, during which Pat will conduct a public hearing. I thought the vote was after. Aye.
Franklin, aye.
And the ayes have it. It is so ordered. Thank you. Now we will go to Pat for public hearing.
So this is to take public testimony or comment on the student investment account contract. So in your packet and posted was
Move approval of the grant agreement.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the Student Success Act grant agreement, student investment account grant agreement, I want to say all the things, and SIA grant agreement. Are there questions? All right, then we will move to vote.
Franklin, aye.
Barber, aye.
Saldana Lopez, aye.
When I.
Barrow, aye.
Stevens, aye.
It is so ordered. Thank you very much. Moving on with the next action item is our consent agenda, which
These items you have received previously before our meeting. Are there any questions or anything that you would have eliminated from the consent agenda items before we vote? Okay, then can we have a motion?
I move approval of consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve our consent agenda items. Are there questions? Then we will vote. Stevens?
Stevens, aye.
Barrow, aye.
Win, aye.
Saldana Lopez, aye.
Barber, aye.
Franklin, aye.
It is so ordered. Thank you. We have done our data report, and we are now to our bond update.
I took the liberty of adding construction updates since I know you guys like the playgrounds. So on the bond side, we are finalizing the FF&E, or fixtures, furniture, and equipment vendor selection. And Cherry Park Elementary School renovations and North Powellhurst renovations are currently out for bid. We had vendors at those locations this week looking. And so those close in early January. And then at that time, Alice Thought, Gilbert Heights, and Gilbert Park renovations will go out to bid. Our CTE Center is currently working through some of the design clarifications and updating costing, so we'll hear more about that next month. We are already getting started for our summer of 2025 projects, believe it or not. We may be flip-flopping a project or two, just so you know that. We're looking at some of the issues with the weather that we've had recently, and we're seeing some roofing that may need a little bit replacement sooner than later. So we may flip-flop a couple of those roofing projects with some other projects. Again, not bond related, but we did award the playgrounds to All Play Systems, and we actually met with them this week. And so we're starting planning, and over break there will be at the 5 schools looking at locations that were selected and narrowing that down, doing the designs. They already have some ideas of the equipment that we recommended so that we could make them more consistent. And so we should be seeing those. We'll be ordering the items, and I'm hearing that the actual delivery on playground equipment is around 12 weeks-ish. So we're not seeing things like our electrical equipment, which is like 55 weeks. So that's good to hear. Our next bond oversight committee meeting is January 22nd, and so they'll be giving a presentation at the February board meeting. Any questions?
Thank you. With the renovations, that those are part of the bond, right? I wondered in terms of the bids, will we know who is doing the work or who won? Who are the candidates being considered? Maybe that's what I'm asking for the bids.
So for these particular projects, those are all design bid builds, and so they will go out for a hard bid, and that means the lowest bidder will win. So if you remember, we had the RFQ, and I can get a list for you of everyone that was approved through that request for qualifications. Mm-hmm. I will double check, but I'm not sure all of them that were approved actually showed up at the mandatory meetings this week. So it kind of just depends on how much work they have on their plate. But I can give you a list of who was on that.
Does that automatically eliminate them if they don't show up for those meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very important for them to walk the building and see and go through some of the opportunities to ask questions, because we don't want a contractor bidding on something and then saying, oh, I didn't realize. And so they have full opportunity to ask questions, look at the design, and get more information to make a very informed bid.
I'm wondering how we know, or just
wanting to hear in terms of our concerns around inclusion, in terms of BIPOC contractors, women, companies, things like that, how many are meeting that? Do we have that
criteria.
involvement, that diversity, before it becomes all finalized, who's doing what? Is there an opportunity for that?
I don't know that we can like exclude somebody after we've gone through the RFQ process.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they've met the requirements of the RFQ, then they would be allowed to come in and go through the bid process.
No, not excluding. Are we including?
Mm-hmm. We did reach out. And so there was some folks that we deliberately reached out to, like Colas Construction, that did not come or did not respond. So, and that's a Black-owned company.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kind of depends on how much work is on folks' plate and whether they want to respond. So, but we do reach out.
Okay.
I can get more information on who all responded and who all RNC reached out to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Pat. I had a question, and it was actually something that was in the in Ken's update, but it had to do with the bond. And it said, we received a report from a consultant that shows non-conforming issues on our high school campus that we will have to rectify through the permitting process. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, every time you do a construction project and you go down for permitting with the city, they're looking at, are you conforming with all of the different requirements, ordinances, and building codes? So what will happen is there will always be a laundry list of things that they will say you'll need to upgrade or update. And you've heard me over the years joke about trees, because it seems like every time we pick up a shovel, we need to plant a forest. And so there's several items that are popping up. For some reason right now, bike parking that's canopied is a big deal. And RNC management actually experienced that over in Centennial with some work that they did. So they're looking at things to bring you up and make you more compliant. And what you're looking for are things that are the least impactful and hopefully don't break the budget. But every time we add something, there's usually a little incremental cost for non-conforming items. So,
is there like a financial cushion built in for things like this into the bond?
Usually when we do a project and we do a project budget, we do include some for that. But sometimes the city comes in and asks for things. For those of you who recall the kilt, and we did the work in the kilt, and then suddenly we had to have a $90,000, building improvement or exterior grounds improvement for the trash enclosure, because it had to have a drain, it had to be covered, it had to be out of sight, and it was just a little, I would say overkill, but that's me personally.
All right, thank you, Pat. I
Yep.
appreciate it. It sounds like a lovely garbage enclosure.
You can walk around the corner and see it.
Including it in building tours in the future.
Yep.
Right. Okay, thank you. Moving ahead with board policy, first read. Current policies and new policies. Are there comments from our policy committee?
Yeah, so we've got two first read policies that are on the required from OSBA. A local wellness, I would ask that you take a look at it. It's really long. It's like 12 or 13 pages. Tons of new language. Actually, talks about forming a brand new wellness advisory committee that's going to include a lot of stakeholders, a lot of new language around food, specifically really interesting stuff. A lot of stuff I think said that Portland Public had adopted in the past. And I also got some feedback from our nutrition services chief that a lot of the stuff we're already hitting these marks because they're part of like federal and state law. So, but still, it's quite a bit of new language, and there's a bunch here. So you might want to just take a look at it. Another notable thing on here is not using food for like a reward system for students, which I guess has also been long-term Portland policy. Just a lot of really interesting stuff talking about physical education. Like I said, it's like 12 pages, so there's 13 pages. There's a lot to look at here.
Yeah, I think I read through it, and it's already in practice. I think it's just for policy-wise, and I know enforcement is always a challenge. So just to be really quick is really the only feedback I had was really to add more cultural responsiveness into the nutrition education portion. I think I didn't see that piece when you talk about equity. I would like to see that language be included in this policy. That's my only feedback.
For the graduation requirements, IKF, they're adding a couple of new modified diploma and extended diploma, which would serve students that have special types of challenges and are on special education plans like 504s and IEPs. So I'm pretty excited to see that. There's 3 optional policies that we're bringing for first read because we thought they were pretty interesting. The early return to work, GCBDB and GDBBDB, talks about accommodations that we could provide to our employees when they have to leave work due to some sort of illness or just something that's taking them out of work, and some things we can offer to bring them back in a more supportive way. It was highly recommended by OSBA. A lot of the optional policies are not highly recommended, but this one was specifically, so we're bringing it for a first read. Religious and cultural holidays has language that spells out just some practices around allowing students that have religious and cultural holidays that occur during work time, just some accommodations that we can provide. And Juan, I felt like that really speaks to the culture and the diversity of our district, and so we're bringing that as an optional policy on a first read. And also program exemptions kind of goes with religious and cultural holidays. It's really similar language about if someone has a cultural event or a religious event that precludes like a test or a presentation or something in class, that asks our teachers to make an exception and provide like an alternative work environment for that. So I thought we also think that really aligns with our diverse district. And so we also brought that as an optional policy, but as a first read. Most of the second read stuff is stuff we talked about before, and pretty settled language, and we're not super worried about it. So, any questions?
Okay. Thank you. It sounds like we have a lot of reading over the holidays. Thank you very much. So board policy second read is an action item. If we are ready, can we have a motion?
I move approval of, oh my gosh, do I need to name them? Policy BD, BDA, board governance, policy BDC, board governance, policy GCBDA, GDBDA, personnel, family leave, policy LBE, community relations, public schools charter, policy LBEA, community relations, resident student denial for virtual public charter school attendance.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? If not, and you're prepared to vote, we'll start with Franklin.
Franklin, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Saldaña Lopez, aye.
Win, aye.
Barrow, aye.
Stevens, aye.
Thank you. It is so ordered. And now are at our reflections on public comments, which we did not have public comment tonight. So Did you have a reflection anyway?
Well, we do, yeah. We do have a written public comment, so folks could check that out online. So we did have one. Just so for the record, they weren't here today, but they did submit it to us virtually.
Yeah, that is correct. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, board liaison and committee reports.
I have a brief report. Since this last month, I have visited my two schools, our Mill Park and Gilbert Park. With Mill Park, like I said, I attended the Equity PD, which was on white dominant culture, and that was really nice to get to spend the morning with the staff and at Mill Park that were in attendance. And I learned that on that Friday they were doing their multicultural dessert night, which apparently was a huge hit. It got a massive turnout, so unfortunately missed that, but that was really, really neat. And they have had a big influx of newcomers to the school in the last bit, and so learning a bit, a lot about the, newness in that school is really, really special. And at Gilbert Park, I got to volunteer at Special Persons Day, so all the kids got to bring in a special person and have lunch with them. Then they went to recess, and then they did an activity each kid could bring. And the PTA funded all the adults' meals, so everybody got to, it was really cool. And the turnout for that was like more than double what they had anticipated, so they had to actually ask for an overance, and it was a big thing because they hadn't budgeted for enough money. So that was really cool, but I got to stay in the cafeteria and wipe tables and just see all the kids and grown-ups just be so happy, and it was really, really special. And then not really my liaison, but just over this last month, really some cool things I did throughout the district. I think some of us went to the Newsies performance, so that was really cool to see both the theater and the band work together, and that really cool. I attended quite a few community sport events, and briefly at REAP Family Night, and then at the high school, the Bazaar. So, lots of exciting things going on in the district, and I know there's music performances we're missing right now, but anyway, this month's been full of good things, and it's been great to be out and seeing everybody.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a school liaison report myself. I reached out to Ventura. They had an arts and crafts fair this month that went really well too. Had a lot of vendors there, and kids were able to make things. They have a really cool program that's come in. I don't know if you've heard of it. Maybe we'll get a report to the board at some point, called Visions. It's a van that goes to elementary schools. They provide free professional eye care. They have a whole setup in the van, the chair, the thing where you flip the things and all that. And then they provide free glasses to the kids who need them, which is amazing. I know that financially speaking, that's been a big barrier to our family at times, getting eye care for our kids. It's not usually covered by insurance. And so it's really, really cool. I got to talk to them, so that's something that they just got their first set of eyeglasses in, so they wanted to let us know about that. They have 7 families that have been adopted by different agencies for the holidays, so they'll be getting a lot of extra support over the holidays. Also, speaking of restorative practices and equity, Circle Mama came to visit them and helped over the last week and helped them to expand their restorative practices in the classroom. So that's really cool. As to Floyd Light, we heard from them tonight, so I won't talk too much about what they're doing. A lot of exciting stuff. I did get to go to the musical concert last night. My son plays the tuba. It was amazing. You were there. It was amazing, wasn't it? Oh my gosh. It was definitely you can't say that out loud. It was really, really good. Very beautiful experience, and I was so happy to be able to be there and see the choir perform. They were awesome. Yeah. The orchestra performed too. We got a string rendition of several songs, and then the band just blew the doors off. So it was very cool, and that's my school report.
Who has Gilbert Heights? You gonna let them go with that they're the best?
I mean, No, I'm like, all our kids are the best, to be honest. Our music program all filters to the high school.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yes. So even though Gilbert Heights, LSR are close to my heart, I know that everything filters back to the high school where they get to improve even more.
Speaking of the high school, I did get to go to the choir's performance last week at the Grotto. That started at 9 p.m., by the way. But they, but it was really good. They were amazing. I love hearing music in the Grotto. If you haven't heard, the sound is just amazing. And they did a really good job, really impressive in all of the music that they performed was really well done. And just want to commend their director and the supporting musicians and the work that they did, because it was great to be there that night. David Douglas Educational Foundation, we are not having a formal fundraiser this year. And that was a decision that was made at the last meeting, and but really still want to encourage everyone to support the foundation and the work that is being done there. We're really pushing in terms of getting the word out that more students would apply for grants, for scholarships, and being more persistent in getting that out to our students and making sure that they are aware of all the scholarship opportunities that are available to them through the district. So that's some of the things that have been talked about and emphasized. We are glad now that IDA is joining us in those meetings as well. So that's been a good time, just encouraging. Is there anybody else for that? Okay.
Is there going to be a pitch for Scott's Angels at some point? Like fundraiser?
I don't know. I thought that usually comes through the student.
Yeah. I don't know. I saw the assembly and they have like a staff member or somewhere. Some angel is like matching up to like $5,000 of funds. So the kids are trying to raise to get that match, and I'm sure they'd appreciate it too.
Yeah. I heard earlier, I think it was which one? No, it was OSEA talking about the membership numbers that are increasing in an all-time high, and I think that's an opportunity for, is it the $5 that teachers give, that money goes to help with scholarships and providing grants to teachers and all that. So if we got those numbers up, we can get encourage more and more teachers to jump on board there. That would be great too. All right. If there's nothing else, our superintendent's report.
Absolutely, and I promised I'd be short, so kind of the new rule of being late, but there's one serious item I want to review, just quickly update, and then really, sorry, yeah. That might be helpful. Yeah, again, I know I communicated I would be very brief due to the time, but one item I do want to review, just quickly summarized, and it's nothing new, but every board meeting from here on out, every time we meet, I am going to bring up the budget. I'm just going to have a conversation quickly, kind of share, remind. We had a workshop. In that workshop, we identified that right now, rough numbers, real rough magnitude, we're looking at about a $6 million deficit because of ESSER. I want to be clear that what we're doing right now in our work is trying to really continue with the services we have. So current service level, think about jobs and positions. I'm not looking for reductions or reduction in force. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to navigate a pathway where we keep our jobs. Probably there'll be attrition There'll be some positions that we might lose through attrition. I don't know that we can guarantee that now. I just want the board to hear that that's what we're trying to do. Specifically, I want the board to hear that I will be coming to ask the board if they will consider using some of our contingency funds, lowering that. We've done that before in difficult times. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, and it might be something the board's not interested in, but I want to officially communicate with the board that when the time's right, we'll be asking for that. And then right now, we're looking at all of our open positions we have. We're looking at tightening up supplies. We're looking at tightening up across the board where we think there's fund balance that we can play with. The one communication I want to be clear about there is fund balance. When you have an in-fund balance that we're using to balance our budget year over year, that's not based on revenue, but it's based on an ending fund balance, that's deficit spending, right? And if this year we balance our budget by reducing our ending funds in different budget categories, that lowers that ending fund balance, so we have a bigger hit. We know that, I know that, we know that in our planning. Again, the board might direct us to go a different route. We'll be a lot clearer about what we're doing and why. My intentions is to do that and to see if we can navigate this budget by kind of just navigating and making reductions, because we do know this is hopeful at best, but our governor has communicated next biennium that there's a commitment to try to get more funding, different funding. So, you know, it's kind of 1 year at a time here, right? And we know right now there's a deficit, we know there's a gap. My hope is this year that we don't have to do any significant types of reductions that way with personnel. And then maybe the next biennium we have a better understanding of how we do our next steps and where we go. So I just want to communicate a little bit of the vision, what we're trying to do. This is the negative part I'll say, and it doesn't mean that everything's off the table. But when we say that and do that, it limits our investments, right? When we're currently thinking about current service and protecting jobs and moving forward, that's hard with, we do have needs for investments as well, and that will be limited. So those will be tough conversations that we have to have as a team on what we do and how we do it. I just wanted to give it, again, no decisions have been made. We have no decision-making power right now, but some of our planning, our next workshop when we're at budget, my hope is to be able to say, look, here's one direction we could go, here's another direction, and really get some input from the board, talk about how we might get input from community, just so when we get to the budget meetings, we're all on the same page and we know what we're doing, we know the difficult decisions we're making, why, and how that plays out. So just a snapshot there. And again, that was probably longer than you were expecting because I told you I was going to be very brief. So the last thing I'll say in this time, right, holiday season, there's to be thankful, grateful, and hopefully a spirit of giving, but I just want to recognize and say thank you to each of you for your service, for what you do for this district. We all know the hourly rate's not great, right? Volunteer service, you make a difference every day. Your voice, your basically participation, connecting with our staff, with our students, it makes a difference, and obviously we can't run a district without you, so thank you so much. I hope every single one of you has an amazing winter break, holiday season, family, friends, fun, memories, and we're around. I'm a text, a phone call away, so the district doesn't shut down. Kids are out. We'll be a lot slower, but we're definitely in. If there's anything that we need to cover or address, just let me know.
Thank you. The offices are open next week?
Yeah, well, the district office.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, well, otherwise, we say Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, all of the things, and Happy Holidays to everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.